specialist, and what they do is make sure anybody with an that does not have their absentee ballot to turn in when they come to vote, because we have to make sure they haven't voted already.
So
there's a lot of things just a few pieces I have to.
Do you think there's any way to cheat these votes to get extra votes here?
Well, some people just feel really strong and passionate about a candidate, and they just want to keep voting for them.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that does not happen, because it throws things off.
You had no problems here today, though, did you?
And not at all. It was wonderful.
Good for you.
And good for you.
Yeah.
Good news, right?
All right. How much time do we have?
The polls are now.
The polls are officially closed.
This is I'm going to have to remember this place. This is really good. All right, the polls are officially closed here, Bagley Elementary. And yeah, everybody, they made it. People are happy. Look at that. They're locking the doors. Get there. They're locking the door. And boom, that's it. All right. Woo! It is official. And so they're packing it up. You just saw it. This is how they do it. And they're going to take these. Let me just get Madeline.
Oh, the only thing I need is the qualified voter list.
Where do you take these down? You take them downtown?
Down to the election on the boulevard.
On the boulevard,
Down
yeah.
to the election commission. So I take the memory cards, I take these voter lists, I take the surrendered ballots, and I take our supply box.
And how long will it take you to think you'd gather all this stuff up and take it down to the boulevard?
Hopefully the process will go smoothly in about half an hour.
Ooh, all right. How long do you think we'll get results?
Oh, I think the results are kind of rolling in now, because they've been taking in absentee ballots all along. And which is why they want me to get those cards down there now, because they're going to start tabulating those votes immediately.
What about absentees? When can you start counting those?
Well, those have been counted all along, like as people turn them in.
So will we get absentee results before we'll get the in-person voting?
I think the last absentee ballots that they get in, they pretty much have processed most of them already, except because the ones that they're turning in now, they're surrendering and voting here.
Because you could have turned an absentee ballot in today here, right?
No.
Oh, you can't do that?
No, if you do that, then you have to vote here.
Oh, I
So you
see.
surrender it, and then we will process you here. So that's what's happening now. So most of those absentee ballots have been counted.
Ooh.
Looking at those numbers coming in, and those big numbers, I would say in about probably a lot of the numbers are coming in already.
What do you
like
think,
now
9?
from the absentee ballot, I would say 9.
9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
When would you call this race, do you think?
Depends on what it's looking like. If it's a landslide, we can call it like yesterday.
All right, you better get to work. I don't want to hold it up, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. I appreciate that.
My friend.
She's fantastic. She's fantastic. All right, they're kicking us out, I hope. Anyway, fun stuff here. We learned a lot, and look at them. They're packing up. They want to get out of here. Anyway, a little bit low turn, about 20% from the numbers that I can kind of figure out here, but still, 20% voted. We should have the results, as she said, soon enough, within the hour or so, perhaps. I am live here at a polling place, Northwest Detroit, Bagley Elementary. I'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, Charlie, good work out there. I mean, you're giving us a real taste. I mean, we're all, everyone at home right now, sitting on their phones or iPads or connected TVs, and they're waiting for these first results, which, by the way, we have Rob Olchek, who's going to be bringing in those numbers as they roll in. Really interesting to see how these numbers come in. But I want to ask you a question, because, Charlie, you and I have been covering the news on the streets of Detroit for a lot of years. So I want to ask you to get a little risky and give me a little bit of maybe your opinion about something, okay? And it's going to be an interesting question. I know it'll be an interesting answer. Here it is. Is the reason the voter turnout is so low the last 13, 14, 15 years because for the last 13 years, it's kind of been status quo and everything going up? It seems like downtown got better, neighborhoods got better, streetlights came on, everything got better. Do you think that's the reason there's an entire voter bank, a generation that has just seen things status quo or good, and that's why they're not inspired to go vote?
No, I think there's a lot of apathy. I think that some people really believe their vote's not going to count. And I think that there's been a lot of there's a lot of negative association with a politician. If I say the word politician, do you think of a good person or a bad person? The connotation is kind of negative. If I say politics, people say, ooh. If I say Republican or Democrat, many people say, ooh, and they think that they just don't like it. A lot of people think that they're fake. And again, it's not, I'm just generalizing. I'm just from what we've learned over the years. I think we're going to see probably maybe a move toward independence or a move toward the center. And if we do, then I think that maybe more people will accept the process. I think when we have extreme positions on either side of the aisle, if you're an extreme conservative, you're a nut, a religious nut, some people would say. If you're an extreme liberal, you're woke, you're whatever.
Yeah.
And people don't like the extreme. When you're being brought back into the center, I think people can accept you. And the reality is, I think a lot of people are probably closer to the middle than they are to the extreme. Not everybody,
But Charlie,
sure.
Charlie, what does that mean for Kinlock,
yeah.
though? Because you said the career politician people are uninspired by, but then you have someone like Kinlock who's like, dude, I've never served a day in my life outside of serving God and serving the people in my church, 35,000. Isn't that an outsider kind of thing that would be alluring to some people?
Kinlock was actually a smart politician. He looked at the numbers and he saw he's got 40,000 people in his Triumph Church. And he knows that when there's a primary of, I don't forget how many people were in the primary, but when you can get number 2 with 17% of the vote, meaning his constituency, he had a base. That's good politics. He didn't want a large turnout in the primary. Why? Because he had his base come out. Different strategy when you go to a general election. If you're having big numbers, you better have super name recognition or a lot of money to get that money out. And Mary Sheffield raised 10 times more money to get her name out. But remember, she's been doing this for years. Mary Sheffield can go on the Pulse pretty much anytime she wants. So she can get media exposure pretty much anytime she wants, unlike Kinlock. That's why it's very difficult. When you run for mayor, name recognition's a big deal. How do you get it? You buy it for the most part, or you're in a position already where you can get free media exposure like now. So you got to weigh the numbers here, but I kind of think, though, that when we come back into the middle a little bit, people tend to understand and accept, as opposed to these kind of radical positions. And that's a guess on my part. That's me editorializing.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's true, but we'll see.
One thing that's the fact, you said 10 times as much, $1.3 million raised by Sheffield, $137,000 raised by Kinlock. Dollars do matter. Money talks. All right, Charlie, I know they're going to kick you out in the cold. We'll see you outside with that coat on in a few minutes here. Our coverage continues of the election here after this.
Well, the polls are officially closed, and we're getting a closer look now to know, well, it's closer to knowing the results of several key races across our area.
That's right. It's hour 2 of our live streaming coverage here on Fox Local. We're glad you're with us. We'll get to our local races in a second, but the eyes of the country watching this breaking news story at another big race we're watching out of Virginia for the governor's race there. Just before 8 o'clock, the Associated Press called the race for Abigail Spanberger.
Yes, and our team is standing by, including, though, Dave Spencer and Camille Amiri, who are both live in Detroit. And for the race, the entire state is watching, everybody here. So we're going to get to Camille with Solomon Kinlock, the Reverend, his campaign in a second. But right now we're going to start with Dave, who is with the Mary Sheffield campaign. And we heard through Charlie's live shot there, maybe around 9 o'clock, they'll be starting to get some really, I guess, concrete results. So we should know soon.
That is the hope for most of us, I would have to think. And here at the Sheffield camp, obviously they're leaning one particular way. You mentioned the polls closed at 8. That's exactly when the doors to this ballroom opened. But the pre-party out in the hallway, that was well underway, starting at 7 o'clock. And already, take a look at this. It's packed in here. I mean, it is. I've covered a number of elections, and usually when the polls close, people start to trickle in. Here, there was people waiting as the polls closed to enter the ballroom. They are geared up. They are ready to get this party underway as they hope to make history tonight, as Detroit would, in their minds, elect the first female mayor of the city of Detroit. A lot of people excited about that. We're seeing some familiar faces, not necessarily from the city of Detroit. Mark Hackle, Macomb County executive here in Wayne County at this event. We saw Dave Coulter, Oakland County executive, also here for this event. Obviously here to support what they believe will be the next mayor of Detroit. That's Mary Sheffield. She started her political campaign at a very young age and then became making history already when she was the youngest person ever elected as the city council president back in 2022. And now she again is hoping to make history again. If history is any indication, what we saw in August with the primary votes, Mary Sheffield receiving 51% when there were 9 candidates, it stands to reason that there's a good chance that she will walk away victorious. We hope to hear from her sometime around 9 o'clock. We're told that the media will get a little access to Ms. Sheffield shortly before she addresses the crowds, the hundreds of people who have been invited to take part in this event. We talked to one dad earlier who was here, and he said that his son was the youngest person, a podcaster, to win the Spirit of Detroit Award given to him by Mary Sheffield. A lot of connections, a lot of personal stories that people have here in this room tonight with the candidate. They're again very optimistic. I would say most of them here have a feeling that this is going to go their way as we start to count the votes that have already been cast, as polls did close about an hour ago. We will of course stay with you, and if any indication that Mary Sheffield is going to be speaking to us, whether that's in person or taking the podium, we'll make sure to cut in and you could hear that here right on Fox Local. Maybe it'll happen before 10 o'clock. If it doesn't, we will also bring it to you live when we go on air and stream the news for everyone starting at 10 o'clock. For now, I'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, she certainly raised a lot of money and has endorsements from a lot of different individuals and leaders within the cities, which is certainly bodes well for her. But, it's interesting when she went head-to-head with the Reverend Kinlock there. He made a lot of claims and tried to take some digs, but she called it just desperate politics. And it doesn't really seem like it made much of a dent in her campaign.
Yeah, it doesn't. It seems like people are very much familiar with who Mary Sheffield is and what she is about. They've probably seen her come up through the ranks in local politics, obviously being on city council for as long as she has been. You get a good understanding of where she stands, how she gets along with the current mayor, Mike Duggan, and the message that she's been spreading about how she wants to further his efforts and reach more people into the neighborhoods, kind of amplifying what he's already doing. We'll see if that indeed becomes the case. race, and if she is indeed elected.
Well, certainly you have to think, I mean, she's been part of a machine that has been working. Maybe not everything has been accomplished that everybody wants, making everyone happy, but in the grand scheme of things, then you have somebody who really doesn't have any experience with the city, and there is that fear of going back. And maybe, you know, obviously bankruptcy being the worst case scenario, we're not saying that, but there's been some dark times in the city and no one wants to go back.
You're certainly right, but you said something that was pretty key there. She's part of the machine. And so what we saw with the election of our president, Donald Trump, is that maybe people didn't want part of the machine any longer. So that could be one way that this works in Solomon Kinlock's favor, the pastor's favor. Of course, we will have to see in just moments from now what the case is. And as Charlie was alluding to, with the low voter turnout, that name recognition probably goes a long way. People in this room seem to have strong feelings on which way that's going to go.
All right. Okay, well, we'll check back in with you, Dave. We'll see what happens. Now, right now, though, we're going to head over to Camille Amiri because she is now with the Kinlock campaign, and she's a little calmer over there. I'm sure they have their own cautiously optimistic ideas as they wait for the numbers to roll in. But this is interesting because we just heard Dave say, Camille, that he's the opposite of what Mary Sheffield represents. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, people are really optimistic right now. A lot of people outside getting food from free food trucks and then coming back inside. The mood here really is like an old family reunion. We keep seeing people coming and hugging other people and happy and some dancing. And the slogans on the women's t-shirts say, "Women for Kinlock, I'm Kinlocked in." So there's really this grassroots campaign that we've seen since the very beginning of his campaign, where people, obviously he's got a 40,000 base of people from his church, Triumph Church. So we've really been saying, like, I'm going to bring you to the polls, you're going to come vote with me, I'm going to take 2 friends, and then they're going to bring 2 friends. So really, yeah, he is the underdog, but a lot of optimism right now. Like I said, a good playlist. We've seen a lot of young people here, a lot of kids here dancing, enjoying the food, enjoying the music, and really the polls closed a little bit about 8 o'clock, so a few minutes ago. I think more people will be coming in. The weather is beautiful, so I think that's going to bring more people in too. Waiting to see when Solomon Kinlock will get here, of course, when he takes the podium, when he talks to people. We're waiting for that. We don't know when the results are going to come in. Of course, we're going to bring you all of that as soon as we get it with our live streaming coverage here on Fox Local. But for now, we'll send it back to you.
Ms. Camille, we'll see what happens as those numbers start to roll in. We'll check back with you later. Roop, over to you.
And let's take a look at what some of these races really mean for us. We're talking about Detroit, we're talking about Virginia, we're talking about New York, and so much more with the one and only Peter Trombor, Oakland University Political Science Chair. It's always good to see you. Thanks for joining us, Professor Trombor. We're watching this carefully. So we talked about Detroit. We'll do that for a moment, and we'll get into New York for a moment, too. In Detroit, the voter turnout is very low. That's been kind of one of the big stories. There seems to be an audience, if you look at New York, someone like Zoran Mandani, who goes on TikTok and takes over this young Gen Z crowd. Is there a young Gen Z crowd in Detroit that is missing out on a candidate that can embrace that?
Well, I think there is. But who that candidate is, I don't think anybody knows, right? And that's always, I think, going to be the trick, right? You have an audience that wants to engage. You have an audience that has concerns. But you need the right candidate who not only has the message, but the medium to reach those folks. And I don't know that exists in city politics right now in the city of Detroit.
So if you look at the numbers for the primary and you see, for instance, 100 and I think the total number of voters is something like registered voters, 500,000 registered voters in Detroit. 115,000 decide to go out and vote. Right. That's 1 out of 5. 4 out of 5 sit this out completely. What gives?
I think there's and we've talked about this before during the primaries. I think there's a very real disconnect between how city residents feel about the city and about the political establishment and what they think their elected officials actually deliver for them. And so, as we talked before, right, the highest turnout are in the wealthiest parts of the city. And it's in the parts of the city that feel like they've been left behind by the downtown development and all of the revitalization efforts that feels left out of that. They're the folks who aren't engaged. And I think that creates an opportunity for a candidate who can speak to that disengagement, who can speak to that sense of isolation and alienation from the city's political establishment, and sort of present to them a platform that says, not only do I understand your feelings of disconnection, but here's what I want to do about it.
Pastor Kinlock is in many ways that guy. He came not from the world of politics, but the world of Detroit's poor. He says he grew up in the very streets and the neighborhoods where he hopes that people who are there will vote for him. He grew up there knowing that crime is still an issue in Detroit. Poverty is still an issue. He was speaking to that underserved community. The question is, will they show up to the polls tonight?
Well, I think what turnout is showing us is the answer is no.
Yeah.
Right? If we're talking about turnout that's probably 20% or lower, I think what that suggests to me is that for whatever reason he didn't resonate, whether he was not trying to communicate through the right channels, or the fact that, it's not that the black church has lost its centrality in the community, but I suspect that the folks who are filling those pews on a week-by-week basis are not necessarily going to be the demographic that we're talking about here, which would be younger voters and potentially more progressive voters and things like that.
Let's dive into that for a moment, because I find that very interesting, because there seems to be, like, that's where the problem is. If you want to say the problem is voter apathy, it's not going to the right places. There used to be a day when people watched Channel 2, 4, 7, read the Detroit News, and that was it. That day is gone. People are literally inundated with information. Yeah. So the candidates have to know where to go. Mm-hmm. When you look at the phone and you look at, let's go to New York for a moment, and you look at Mamdani, he is on that TikTok like crazy. And that Gen Z, they're fangirling and fanboying around him. Right. That's the difference, yes?
I think so, right? Knowing how to reach that target. Yeah. But then it's not just about being on the right platform. If the message doesn't match what that audience is looking for, what energizes them, then, I mean, let's be honest, like, Trump is all over social media, but it's not necessarily with a message that's appealing to the Mamdani voters,
That's
for
a
example.
good point. Well, the Mamdani voters, let's talk about that for a moment. In New York right now, you have this historic election. You have a socialist Muslim 30-some-year-old who's running against establishment politics that didn't go well. Cuomo is not a well-liked in all circles guy, right? He's kind of like damaged goods in many ways. Yeah. He's number 2 in the polls. Yeah. Talk about this election between Mamdani and Cuomo.
Well, I think it's really interesting, right? So obviously Cuomo loses the Democratic primary, decides he's going to run anyway as an independent. He gets the endorsement of the outgoing mayor, who was not well loved. No. I don't know that that's an endorsement that helps him. He gets the endorsement the other day of Donald Trump. I don't know that that's going to help him with New York City voters. And so I think that, and then the cards that Cuomo has been playing, trying to paint Mamdani as essentially an alien, right? Someone who has grown up and lived his entire life in New York City. That somehow to suggest that he, because of his personal identity, because he is a Muslim.
He is the other.
He is the other, somehow not a real New Yorker. I just think a lot of the voters that Mamdani appeals to would find that offensive.
Well, it smacks of what happened back in 2008 when President Obama was running for office, and we heard a lot of people in the now MAGA party and Republican right say, is he really from here? They questioned his, the birther
citizenship,
thing, the birther movement.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Virginia race. I find this interesting. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears, a Republican, raises something like $30-some million, runs against a representative, a Democrat, and she just blew her out the water, Abigail Spanberger. Right. What do you know about that race in terms of why you think she won?
So Virginia is really interesting. I think Virginia is a state that has sort of made that transition into a pretty safe, at least in national elections, a pretty safe Democratic state. But in this particular moment, right, it's also a state that has suffered disproportionately from the cuts in federal jobs. And if you are going to lay blame for that anywhere, you're going to lay that blame at the feet of the Republican Party. So it strikes me as as not very surprising that Virginia voters who have felt disproportionately victimized by this Republican administration would then turn out to put a Trump ally into the governor's mansion.
But at the same time, this is a U.S. representative who is literally right now with a stamp on if it's cut. So many people are blaming Democrats as well for not coming to the table sooner and getting something done. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, I think that it's a more complicated story than that, right? I think what the national opinion polling still shows us is that the lion's share of responsibility for the government shutdown and its implications, the consequences of that are being laid at the feet of the Republicans in Congress and the president. So it doesn't surprise me. In fact, what I would suspect that we'll see in a number of these sort of races on the national stage is that it's really going to be treated as a referendum on the sitting administration.
We're waiting on numbers, by the way, right now, and we're getting them slowly. Of course, as they trickle in, we're going to get right to Rob Wolchek, who's keeping his eyes on the numbers as polls close. In the meantime, what makes history if Kinlock wins? What makes history if Mary Sheffield wins?
I think that if Sheffield wins, the first woman mayor of the city, obviously first African-American woman of the city, that's notable. Kinlock's someone who's a political outsider, who doesn't have a history of elective office. He breaks ground in his own right. So I think no matter how you slice it, you have a historic choice as the next mayor of Detroit.
The numbers have not been on Kinlock's side relative to polling. And of course, the most important poll just closed 27 minutes ago on the money right now. And of course, as those results come in, we'll be checking in with Rob Wolchek on that. But Professor Trombor, great to see you. We'll be seeing you throughout the evening here on Fox 2. Thanks for your help with our continuing coverage, which does continue after this. All right, thanks for staying with us with our wall-to-wall election coverage here on Fox Local. I'm Ruth Raj.
And I'm Taryn Asher. We're bringing you live up-to-the-minute results and reaction tonight.
Our team is spread all across Metro Detroit tonight, keeping an eye on the biggest races, including the race for Detroit's next mayor.
And the big race
Some people in Chicago that I've talked to say, who live in the city, say, bring in the National Guard, we need help. Is there ever a situation in which you believe the National Guard should be a part of helping police the city?
You know, I have been very firm in my approach that I do not believe we need to militarize our neighborhoods to address public safety. I welcome federal resources, whether it's funding for housing, funding for mental health, funding for our community violence intervention work. But I believe that it is going to take strong partnerships rooted in our support with the federal government and law enforcement and community. And so that will be my approach. And as mayor, my goal is to always make sure that we are proactive in preventing the National Guard from coming to Detroit.
But kind of like the nonprofit world, you said we're not going to depend on for funding some of these nonprofits, but you're going to use the help. Is there ever a situation where the National Guard would be needed? Would there be a time that you would call the governor, call the president and say, hey, I need help?
I'm not sure. It would have to be something that is the will of the elected officials here in Detroit in the state of Michigan, but not something that is done, overstepping the will of the government here in the city of Detroit. And again, we are going to do all that we can to invest in our police department, the men and women on the ground here doing the work to ensure that they fully are staffed and resourced to eliminate and reduce gun violence in Detroit.
We're never in favor of National Guard or armed forces paroling and policing the streets of Detroit. Policing and patrolling is a local responsibility, and we have great men and women in the city of Detroit who carry out that responsibility with dignity, integrity, and respect. So we want to continue to do that. But we also have partnerships like the One Detroit Initiative, where you partner with the Wayne County prosecutor, you partner with the FBI and other local and state and federal law enforcement agencies in order to continue to come up with a strategy to bring crime down. Because crime don't just affect Detroit, it affects us all.
But is there ever a time where, I understand what you're saying, National Guard is not supposed to take the place of Detroit police, but is there ever a time that they come in order to quell things down? Do you see that ever as an option?
Roop, you got to remember when you look back over the history in our community, that's a traumatic experience. Many people that come from even my own community and multiple communities know the trauma of what devastation that has brought and the residuals of that devastation that we continue to live with. Just the thought of it alone traumatizes an entire community of people. And so we're never in favor of having to have federal enforcement come in and police our streets.
All right, both of the candidates talking about whether they would send National Guard troops and whether they would accept National Guard troops, and both saying no. But as you'll remember, though, Taryn, Kinlock at first, when during that debate on Channel 7, kind of people were wondering. He kind of left it open-ended, and then he corrected it. He said, nope, I don't want him in town. Yeah,
sometimes the candidates wanted to, have a different viewpoint than their opponent, and sometimes it doesn't always work in their favor until they take a look at all the details. Yeah, exactly.
We'll check in with our Detroit crews in just a few moments.
But first, we go to the Hamtramck elections after a year of controversy, really, for that city. And Fox News' Dave Kinchin is keeping an eye on that for us. And do we hear anything yet? Any results rolling in?
No results yet. We did talk with the clerk's office. What they're telling us is that they did have a busy round of voting, particularly going into the evening, and that the absentee ballot count is high. So that's also a good thing, according to city officials here in Hamtramck. We did talk with the team for candidate Adam El-Harbi, and we're told he's prepping right now. Not really ready to talk at the moment. Also, the other campaign we're reaching out to is Muhinth Mahmood, a member of City Council running for mayor. This is something that a lot of people here have said between the mayor's race and several seats up for City Council, about 3 seats up in this race on council. A lot of people have said, this would be a chance for the city to move forward, to turn a corner after a lot of investigations in City Hall. 2 council members, including Mahmood, who's running for mayor on City Council, 2 council members accused of not living in the city that they represent. Those accusations coming from city investigators, all members of City Council sued by the ousted city manager, Max Garbarino, who himself was suspended originally after he put the former police chief, Jamil Al-Tahiri, on a suspension due to allegations of misconduct. Both of those individuals are now no longer with the city of Hamtramck. So a lot of people are really hoping that this election, what they tell us, they hope it will bring about some positive change. But as for right now, it's really just watching and waiting at this time. No major numbers indicating this going one way or another.
Well, Dave, certainly they have had their fair share of controversy. So there is a chance that maybe voters want a clean slate and they really want to take a new direction. But we've also seen issues with the LGBTQ community and with the flag situation that happened there. They want it to be more inclusive, while others, they're catering to maybe perhaps different ethnic groups that think that they need to be included in situations. So the voters, it's their time to speak.
Yeah, it really is. And I think there's also been or will be some court movement on that flag situation, too. That's what a source with the city attorney's office did tell us. So you do have that. That's something we've covered extensively. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues here. And a lot of people have been packing that very small city council room and hoping they don't have to do that much longer if they can get some change and some forward momentum.
Yeah, a lot of controversy for, I think, at 2.2 square miles, perhaps. Hamtramck is. It's very small. So we'll see what falls out tonight. Thanks.
Yeah.
A larger area and a lot of interest in Dearborn as well, where voters are actually deciding on several key issues as well. Fox News' Lauren Edwards is there and joins us live. And I imagine, Lauren, that they're watching a lot there in Dearborn, being such a large Arab American population. You wonder how closely they're watching the New York race as well. You and I talked about that earlier today.
Yeah, absolutely, Roop. I can tell you that they are paying attention to that, looking at that Zohran Mamdani race that's happening over in New York for New York City mayor. But a lot of people here focus, too, on the mayoral race. And, I know that the city of Dearborn has been grabbing so many national attention and headlines lately. With that foiled terrorist plot and the FBI raids and so much more going on. But again, honestly, all the voters we've been talking to, all they've really cared about is just the mayoral race, what's going to be happening tonight. But take a look, because earlier we were over at City Hall and, voters going in and out all day long, and they were just voting, again, making their voices heard. That's what I heard so many people talking about, focused on who's going to be taking that mayoral seat, whether it's incumbent Dearborn Mayor Hammoud, which is where we're at now at his watch party, and then also he's running for a second term, or will it be Najee, who is an independent? And again, so much happening in Detroit lately, again, with the FBI that was here and the raids and foiling that plot on Halloween and, targeting Ferndale. But so many people say that Dearborn is so much more than that, and they have hope for Dearborn in the future.
To be the best city because I live in that city.
I hope we continue to, grow, prosper, be more inclusive, and think of each other, maybe a little more before putting ourselves first.
I think just understanding from outsiders of how we embrace diversity and how no matter what our backgrounds are, in my experience, all of my neighbors near and far have always welcomed us with open arms and invited us into their homes. And I think that's reflective of what the community I want my boys raised in. That's what I want them to remember growing up, and that's what I want them to carry on as they get older.
Now, I can tell you again, we are here at the watch party in Dearborn for Mayor Hammoud, and so far what we've seen, 41% of the votes have already been tallied. He's up 71%. Najee has 21%. And forgive me, it's very loud, and we've also lost some connection, so I can't hear you at all. But I do just want to let you know that he is up right now here in Dearborn, and we're going to continue to stay out here and get you guys all the sights and sounds. Again, there's a lot of technical issues, so I'm going to be signing off. Reporting live here in Dearborn, Lauren Edwards, Fox 2 News. All
right. Well, perhaps you can't hear us, Ed, in this moment, but apparently Hammoud is hearing it loud and clear from the voters. More than 70% of those thus far are saying yes to him. We'll continue to watch this one closely. Lauren Edwards for us live tonight. Thank you.
All right, for more insight, we are welcoming back Mark Brewer. He's an attorney and the former Michigan chair of the Democratic Party. And then Jason Cable-Rowe, he's a political strategist for Republicans. And we're here and can't wait to hear what you have to say about this night. I mean, it really, in Michigan, there's not that much consequential that's going on, except for in Detroit. And right now we have 3% of the voting in, and it looks like Mary Sheffield 75% to Kinlock 24%. Is that an indicator?
Well, I think it is. I mean, polling a couple weeks ago had her with a 51-point lead. As you guys talked about earlier on fundraising, Kinlock hasn't raised a significant amount of money. You haven't seen him on TV. There's not a lot of mail going out, and so I think it's been difficult for him to move the needle. Mary's been in office for more than a decade. She's from a very significant political family in the community. She's the council president. She's been endorsed by Mayor Duggan. And so I think this has been a fait accompli for some time now.
Yeah, a lot of firsts for her, Mark. I mean, she's the youngest, right, to be able to.
That's right.
If so, first female black mayor, if so. And of course, she represents maybe part of the establishment, but an establishment that made a huge difference over the last, dozen years, but has a lot of her own ideas.
That's right. I mean, she's been part of the comeback in Detroit, but she's got a lot of ideas to address some of the ongoing problems in the city. But Jason's right. She's had a lot of advantages in terms of the campaign. Kinlock never really changed the narrative after the primary. He was never able to come up with an alternative message that appeals to the voters. And a lot of the vote was, in the can, as they say, even before tonight. People were voting absentee. And they saw a name they recognized, and there had been an enormous amount, not just her campaign, but outside spending on her behalf as well, all promoting her. So, again, Kinlock really failed to change the narrative, and I fully expect Mary Sheffield to be mayor of Detroit after tonight.
Right, and before we get into more of a national scope of what's going on here, though, in Detroit, obviously, Mayor Mike Duggan took over after the bankruptcy. Nobody wants to go back to that point. What do you believe that needs to be done in the city in terms of taking care of perhaps the crime, neighborhoods, transparency, education? What needs to be done to be able to move the city in the right direction?
Well, I tell you, the Mayor Sheffield's going to have some really big challenges. The general fund of the city of Detroit has been flat for 10 years at $1.5 billion. The Biden bucks have dried up.
Police, that went a long way for a lot of things, yes.
Police and fire pensions, and they got a haircut during the bankruptcy. Those are going to come due. They're going to want at least.
When are they coming due?
It's imminent. I mean, it's going to be in her first term, and that's 3%. And then the pension funding is going to resume. That's $150 million a year on a $1.5 billion budget. And so where are they going to get new revenues? That means they're probably going to go raise some taxes. Where are they going to raise those taxes? And they might get a short-term boost in revenues, but long-term they're going to be shrinking their tax base. And so I think the fiscal problems for Mary Sheffield in her first term are going to be very significant. So getting to some of those things that you'd like to do to take the city those next steps, I think they're going to be stepping backwards a couple steps before they get to that point.
Some big challenges. And what about, though, Mark? I mean, they have more people living in houses and more, residents supposedly that are paying taxes due to all this, the housing that was provided and jobs and neighborhoods. I mean, do you think that will work in the favor?
Yeah, I think it'll help her. I think she's well equipped to handle these challenges that Jason has outlined. I mean, she's got experience. She's been on the council. She's got a working relationship with those council members because really the mayor can't do anything by him or herself.
Right.
You've got to have a good working relationship with the council. So there will be challenges, but I think she's well equipped to take those on.
Yeah, I do have one more question, though, because, this city council and the mayor seem to work very hand in hand. We've seen in the past, it was almost like a soap opera. Things would play out and be top stories.
It was a soap
6
opera.
and 10 and 11, trust me. We were always there. And now we're going to have to be able to see who's elected to city council and if it's going to be cohesive with the mayor, because if they don't work hand in hand, I mean, they had Duggan working as a businessman, really luring these companies here and providing, I think, a lot of resources. I do think she has her challenges, but don't you think that's key, having good, working relationship?
Yeah, and I think she will. There's not going to be a lot of change. I mean, really, it's just her and Fred Durhal moving on from the council, and I think there's some good candidates that have a cohesive relationship with the city's political leadership. So I don't think that's going to be the challenge, but there'll probably be different ideas on how you generate new revenues as you try to confront the budget challenges that they're going to have.
Well, speaking of the economy, let's hit to a national level, because certainly we know our president, Donald Trump, has not been able to, let's say yet for some, but deliver on all the economic promises that he has planned, maybe some are in the works. but is that going to really impact this election and maybe into the future when it comes to voters deciding who they want to take that spot?
Well, I don't think it's going to impact tonight. I think you're seeing some, things
Abigail,
like Mandami, but that, that's a very blue state. New York's
Virginia, though.
But it's blue. I mean, we had an anomaly in Glenn Youngkin winning a race, but other than that, the last decade, that's been a pretty blue state. Obama won that routinely. Biden won it routinely.
But a lot of federal workers live in
a lot of federal
Virginia,
workers
and they felt the heat from
But
that.
I think for Republicans in 2026, there's some real danger signs, and starting with layoffs. We've seen a number of huge white-collar layoffs in corporate America over the last few weeks and months. We're going to see a lot more as AI starts replacing a lot of these white-collar jobs. So it's not just people on the lower ends of the economic scale. They're going to be looking at joblessness. It's going to be people at the upper ends as well. And we've already seen the last few months, the jobless numbers have not been good, and we haven't gotten inflation under control. And I don't see anything on the horizon that's going to do that. So I think it's going to be a problem for Republicans next year.
Well, I was going to, well, there you go. I was going to say, do you think that this will come to maybe a better place with some of the policies that are coming down from President Trump, or do you think that this is just going to only get worse?
Right now, I don't know what policies you could put in place that can arrest the path that we're on fast enough to make people feel good in 2026
I'm surprised that actually you're saying that. I mean, but
I'm
you're
a
speaking the
truth
truth.
teller,
You're a truth
Taryn.
teller. I like it, but not what I was necessarily expecting. Mark, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
I mean, voter apathy is involved, and there's a lot.
Well, soon will come the time this spring, actually, when people's perceptions of the economy will be baked in.
Yes.
And any kind of late developments aren't going to make a difference. And it's not just blue voters who've been harmed by this. I mean, these SNAP cuts, what he's done to farmers. I've got farmers in my family who can't sell their soybeans because of what Trump has done with trade policy. So he's really hurt his own voters. These health care cuts, health care premiums, those are not going to be restricted in terms of their negative impact to blue voters. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of folks in rural areas in Michigan and elsewhere that are going to be hurt by those. And so it's just one thing after another. And I don't see how you possibly undo all of that harm in the short time he's got left to try to change those impressions.
It's pretty scary because it all falls on the American people who will suffer the most. But it seems like there's a pattern. People don't like, President Biden. Now they shift back to Donald Trump, and then they don't like all of this, and they go back the other way. I mean, it just seems like we're one extreme to the other. And are we ever going to be able to please our voters? I mean, and our people here? You know what I'm saying? That it's tough right now because seems like we're just going one extreme to the next.
Well, and I mean, unfortunately, I think with what's happened over the last 10 to 15 years with social media, with the fragmentation of the mainstream media and where people get their information and how they silo themselves in their own little lanes with their own reinforcing voices, I don't see how we get to a point again where we agree on a common set of facts and have a majority of public opinion around what the priorities are for the country. So
I say that all the time. I mean, Mark, your thoughts on that too? I mean, people are just going to watch what they want to watch when it comes to, as you said, fragmented social media and media, read what they want to read. If that's the case, we're never going to really have our two sides come together and be able to move this country forward in the right way, because that's really what it takes is compromise.
Yeah, it's a real problem. I mean, the perception of the economy now correlate more to your party than the actual facts of what's going on in the economy. You know, the presidency switches, and all of a sudden Republicans approve the economy when they thought it was terrible under Biden, and vice versa. So we've got to figure out a way to get back to a common set of facts. And as we talked about earlier, compromise. That's the genius of this country. We're such a vast, diverse country. We've got to figure out a way to work together and restore that.
Well, Mark, going back to our previous conversation, too, the big complaint, though, Democrats lost their message. It got messed up along the way. Priorities weren't quite straight, it seemed. And no one felt like they never felt very confident in voting for their people because the message got lost. Do you feel like that's being reshaped at this point, and they may have someone in mind to take over for president?
Well, let's separate people from policy.
Okay.
There is a great debate going on inside the Democratic Party. We're seeing it played out in some of these races. You know, you listen to the message of the Democratic candidates in New Jersey and Virginia. I think we're getting back to our roots in terms of the economy and, you know, dealing with people's economic needs as being at the root of what we're about as a party. That's why we lost the working class. And frankly, it started, and I blame Democratic President, I blame Clinton for this. He started us down the path with NAFTA. And we didn't take care of those displaced workers, starting here in Michigan and elsewhere. And it's just gotten worse. And those workers have actually felt nobody cares about me. And they were attracted by the siren song of Trump. And he hasn't delivered for them, but he played on their fears and their anxieties, which have developed over the last generation. So I think the party that develops the most effective economic message and delivers on those economic promises is the party that can govern in this country. We haven't seen which party yet, but there's a vigorous contest going on.
All right, and right now we have both parties at odds for the government shutdown, and this is now record territory. So where do you both see this going from here, besides hurting more people?
You know, I'm optimistic. Over the weekend, you had a number of Senate Democrats and Republicans who are on the Appropriations Committee meeting, trying to figure out where they can find some compromise. I think, you know, the reality is the Democrats entered into this game of chicken without really having any cards. I think one of the challenges was a week into it, they had the No Kings rally in Washington, D.C., and there was no way they were going to cave to Republicans with that rally, because instead of burning Donald Trump in effigy, they would have been burning Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in effigy. And so then that added another week, because they certainly weren't going to capitulate right after the No Kings rallies. And, you know, I think that particularly Chuck Schumer is motivated by demonstrating to the base that they are fighting Trump, but they don't hold any cards. And it's their constituency groups that are taking the brunt of the shutdown. But now you see Transportation Secretary Duffy today saying if we don't do something, the air traffic controller situation is going to get exponentially worse. And I'll tell you what, God forbid there's a plane crash while this is going on, and what that turns into on the
Kentucky,
UPS.
yes, right. But still, it's
a passenger
very scary.
plane with, you know, 100 people dying would be a tragic exclamation point to what's going on right now. And I think a lot of politicians will pay a price if that happens.
Well, and that's the thing. Even right now, let's say we try to get things back online and going. I mean, it's going to take a while to get those benefits back on the SNAP, the EBT cards. We know government doesn't move that fast. So these people are suffering in the meantime. And it just seems like it's going to cost our country more in the long run.
Darren, I think, though, the problem now is Trump. I think, and I agree with Jason on this, I think the Democrats and Republicans in the Congress could work this out and reach a compromise. But now you got Trump throwing bombs like, you know, you got to get rid of the filibuster, right? I'm not going to, you know, give anybody SNAP benefits until after the shutdown ends. He's making compromise difficult, if not impossible, because he can make threats against those Republican senators and members of primarying them and so forth. And he's made some pretty draconian threats so far. So I wish he would just let the members of Congress work this out.
How long do you think this could go on until, I mean, where is the end button here? Because it is getting dangerous. We've talked about many different subjects here, and all of these have really dire consequences. So where's the stop?
I think the fact that SNAP benefits have a run out of money, I think that's going to put some pressure on. I think the results of this election and the election being over hopefully lowers the temperature a little bit. But I go back to the fact, I mean, this is a problem in the Senate, and you've got Senate Democrats and Senate Republicans on the Appropriations Committee working to try to find a way to open this up. You only need 5 senators, and there's a few of them that aren't even going to be around in next year to suffer a penalty because they're retiring, like Gary Peters. But it is, I mean, I know everyone wants to point fingers.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Who are we pointing at? Is it Democrats or Republicans when it comes to the health care?
Well, on the health care, but we're conflating two things. No, it's the continuing resolution that they have been voting against 14 times. Democrats have voted against it. Health care is part of the budget, not part of the continuing resolution. It's 2 different bills. The continuing resolution keeps the government open on FY25 funding levels. The health care situation is supposed to be negotiated in the FY26 budget framework. And so they're conflating the two. And if they would separate it, and by the way, Republicans voted for continuing resolutions when the Democrats and Biden were in power, but 14 times they've voted against the continuing resolution. And, you know, you in the earlier broadcast was talking about Haley Stevens saying that, you know, Republicans are at fault, but I won't vote to reopen the government. Well, that's kind of a contradictory message. You're saying that they're at fault, and then in the next breath saying, and I will not vote to open up the government.
Which is then her fault.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, let's talk about some facts here. There is money set aside, billions and billions of dollars, to take care of these SNAP benefits. Trump won't spend it. And so, again, the Republicans control the presidency, the Senate, and the House. This is on them in terms of the shutdown and the consequences. And that's what the American voters rightfully believe, that it is on them. It's not incumbent on the Democrats to come across and make a compromise. Republicans won the election. They're running the government. This is on them to figure out a way to fix this.
Well, they would have to present it then to the Democrats in a way that they would accept it. And certainly we've seen the impact right now with health care. I mean, there's people that lost it, thousands and thousands of
Millions of people.
Millions,
and we're going to see increased premiums as a result of all this. And again, this all goes back to Trump and his threats and his unilateral actions. If he would work within the existing framework and let people work this out, I think we could get back to something that works.
I don't think anybody's too proud of our current situation in our country right now, and I think everybody wants some sort of resolution.
It's an international embarrassment.
It truly is. It really is. All right, well, we thank you both for being here. We're going to talk to you a little bit more throughout the evening as this rolls out, but certainly some brilliant insight there from both sides. And we are going to go to break. We'll be back. Monitor election results tonight, including the race for Detroit's next mayor.
Our team is standing by with Dave Spencer and Camille Amiri, who are both live in Detroit for the race. The entire state is watching. We'll head to Camille with the Solomon Kinlock camp in a second. But let's begin with Dave, who's with the Mary Sheffield campaign. And listen, Dave, I know this is light reporting from the precincts, but 3% of the votes counted. That's basically like, what, one precinct? 75% Sheffield, 24% Kinlock. That doesn't, that kind of tracks with the primary numbers that we saw coming in.
It certainly does, and make no mistake, the DJ that is working the crowd up there on the stage here at the Mary Sheffield campaign party inside the MGM Grand Ballroom is making sure that the crowd is well aware of those polls that are coming in. As you mentioned, just 3%, but there was a loud cheer when they learned that 75% of the 3% are going towards their candidate, the one they're here supporting, that being Mary Sheffield. And I can tell you, it is a action-packed crowd here. It is standing room only. There's a dance floor up there. I don't even know if you could see it from where we're standing, but they were doing the hustle just moments ago. It's tough to maneuver through all of these people, and this spills out into the hallway here at the Grand Ballroom. It's been like this for going on 2 hours now, and they have been telling us that at around 10 o'clock is when Mary Sheffield will actually get on that stage and address these hundreds of supporters that have been here from the very beginning when she announced that she was going to go from city council president, where she currently serves right now, a position that she held since 2022, to then try for the top position and make a little history, becoming the first woman, if elected, woman mayor of the city of Detroit. Now, a lot of people have been here in her corner, and there are people that are not necessarily voting for her, but supporters. I'm talking about the Macomb County executive, Mark Hackle, Dave Coulter, the Oakland County executive, also here. I saw Jocelyn Benson in this crowd. I saw the chief of police, Todd Bettison, here of Detroit, also in attendance. This is a who's who of anybody who is a mover and shaker in Detroit, coming here to see what Mary Sheffield will have to say in less than an hour, when we're told that she is going to take the stage and tell all these people her plans for the future if things continue to go the way they're projecting to go at this very moment. Very early, like you said, only 3% reporting, but she did take 51% in the primary, and that was when there were 9 candidates. Here there are 2 candidates, and things are looking very optimistic in her camp. That's what we're hearing from her people. So we hope to hear from her between 9:30 and 10. And as soon as that happens, you'll be hearing from her, whether that's streaming or on air. However you're watching us right now, make sure you stick with us so we can hear together what she has to say about the city of Detroit. Reporting live at the MGM Grand Ballroom, Dave Spencer, back to you guys.
Well, she's certainly in the strongest position to win with the most endorsements, the numbers, the experience. So we'll see. It's obviously looking favorable. Do we know if she's in the building right now? Have you seen her? Have you heard from her at all?
No, she has not made a physical appearance. I don't know if she is here. I don't want to speculate. I do know that they've been talking about how all this stuff is being projected on her social media, and she is aware of what's going on in this room. In fact, just down the hall, there's one of those 3D picture cameras that there's a long line. All of that, again, is being posted to her social media. This is very much an over-the-top victory party, as it's been said multiple times from the DJ right there on the stage. So, again, very strong feelings of optimism as we start to tabulate the polls that have already, or the votes that have already been cast.
All right, we'll check back with you later. Dave Spencer reporting live for us. Thank you. And right now we're going to head over to Fox 2's Camille Murray. She is live with the Reverend Solomon Kinlock's campaign. A little bit of a different vibe there. How's it going, Camille?
Let me tell you, this is a very energetic crowd. We've had stand-up comedians up here. We feel kind of like we're at church, which is not a surprise because, of course, a lot of people from Triumph Church here. Pastor Solomon Kinlock, not here yet. Yes, he's the underdog. Yes, we know that he's not the possible winner, but it's still early on, and you ask these people, they say that he is the next mayor. Of course, it's too early to tell. The race has not been decided yet, but they have been chanting boots on the ground, locked in for Kinlock. This is a real grassroots campaign. Obviously, he has not spent the amount of money, he has not raised the amount of money that Mary Sheffield has anywhere close to it, but really going by the base of 40,000 church members of this mega church. They all have friends, they all have family members. On social media for months now, weeks now, they've been saying, get to the polls, take 2 friends to the polls. They said, don't count him out, even though he's not the favored person to win this. They said anything is possible. He, of course, is a different type of candidate than we've normally seen, but this is what these people say Detroit needs. Of course, we are interested to see what he has to say when he takes the podium, whether or not he's going to speak before the race is called or after. It's just kind of a wait and see. Like I said, he's not here yet, but the crowd here has been excited and happy and cheering, and they are confident. So we will have to wait and see what happens once all the ballots are counted. But for now, we're reporting live in the Midtown area. I'm going to send it back to you.
Well, no matter what, though, Camille, we have to say between these 2 candidates, and for the most part throughout the whole campaign for Detroit mayor, it seems like it has been not mudslinging. It's been very fair for the most part, and not a lot of shots at one another. Here, just a little bit, but it really overall has been a very clean campaign.
Absolutely, and people have been talking about that here tonight, how gracious both candidates have been. It's very refreshing to see after everything we've seen in the political arena, especially in our country, nationwide, more so than here in Detroit. But yeah, that's one thing that's been really refreshing. Both candidates, in fact, even talking to the campaign manager earlier tonight, he says, look, if Mary Sheffield wins, we want to make sure that she speaks first. We don't want to step on her toes when we speak. So really, it's a mood that we don't normally see in politics, but it is definitely very welcome at this point in time.
Well, it's good to see for sure. I agree. Thank you so much, Camille, for that. We'll check back with you later as well.
Jim, we've been talking about results and how slow the voter turnout has been in Detroit, different in New York. They had more people showing up at the polls this afternoon than they had since 2001, and already we're getting some results. And it seems like Zohran Mamdani, the socialist 34-year-old Muslim American, has 51% of the vote, with Andrew Cuomo coming in at 39%. 51 to 39, 36% of the precincts reporting. So that's a pretty significant indicator of where things are headed.
And we heard from some of the political insiders, and they were saying that, he appealed to the younger people, and he met the voters where they were, where Cuomo, is part of a different regime or represents that as well. So
look at your teenager's TikTok account. See how many Mamdani hits you have and see how many Cuomo hits you have, and you'll know where they were headed, that's for sure.
Yeah, we saw the crowds, that's for sure. All right, thank you. Well, both Detroit mayoral candidates, though, we know they made an appearance on the Pulse last week.
Yeah, we talked a lot about, what's going to happen when that American Rescue Plan money runs out, $860 million. That's going to be gone. So how do you stay on budget and keep the city where it's at right now? Here's what they had to say. You and I have talked about this quite a bit, that American Rescue Fund money that came from the Biden administration, it helped puff up the budget quite a bit and allow for programs to continue and grow. Now with that money drying up, $800+ million, how do you still give pay raises to your police officers, your firefighters, keep the city services running, keep crime down, yet not have those funds available?
So I think it's important to mention that we used our ARPA funding as a one-time allocation. It wasn't used to fill any holes or any deficits. We knew that it was one-time funding, and so we already prepared ourselves to know that that money will be ending in 2026. But what I do know is we also have tons of private entities, corporate, our philanthropic sector, who are willing to step up and figure out what have been the most impactful programs in Detroit and how can we sustain those. We're also looking at ways that we can diversify our revenues, looking at innovative ways to bring revenue into Detroit and continue our partnerships with the state and federal government. So we are going to look at all different ways and make sure that we have a chief growth officer in our office whose #1 job is to look at how we diversify our revenues and grow our population.
And it's going to take a team, it's going to take a village, but Councilwoman, with all of these foundations you're talking about, depending on Kresge and others, they're under threat right now by the federal government having their funds stripped. How do you depend on an institution that may not have the money themselves?
Yeah, so never say depend. They can help supplement, right? We're not going to depend on anyone. We're going to continue to grow our population, get people in good paying jobs, because ultimately we want to increase our tax base, which will grow and bring revenue to Detroit. But we do have numerous foundations that have already stepped up and said we want to help our next mayor, and we will be very intentional about being strategic on how we can use those funds to supplement the amazing programs and the myriad of priorities that we have in Detroit.
It's the American Rescue Fund dollars that we've been sitting on for quite some time, $800 million+ dollars. Those will not be there should you become mayor. Yet you have to give your police and your fire a raise. You got to make sure people are safe, all without those funds. How do you move forward?
We have to invest in small businesses in the city of Detroit, and we got to make sure that we're creating opportunities. We have too many people who are leaving the city because they're not opportunities. You can't leave the city. The soul of the city is at stake. When you have half of the children still living in poverty, and you have a poverty rate this high and crime this high, and not access to quality education, we got to create opportunities, and we got to stop kicking can down the road. We got to start engaging our schools so our young people can participate.
But what about the dollars, Pastor? Where do those dollars come from? When the ARPA money dries up, what do you do with that frozen funding that you thought you had?
I believe that we're leaving too much and too many resources on the table. I believe we got some great philanthropic partners in this city who are knocking at the door, already waiting and willing to receive the next mayor of the city of Detroit.
All right, well, the polls we know officially closed, and the numbers are starting to come in.
Yeah, they're trickling in right now. Rob Wolchek is our guy who's actually checking the numbers. We're trying to figure out a good nickname for you.
Yeah, results
the numbers
Rob,
guy, results Rob.
Who's the winner, Wolchek, something like that?
The Hall of Fame? I don't know.
Anyways, the big race everyone is watching tonight. Who will be Detroit's first new mayor in more than a decade? And I'm going to look at the screen, and we should see... Oh, there we go. It's in front of me. That's what they're saying. Okay, Mary Sheffield, 75%. Solomon Kinlock with 25%. So this looks like a very small percentage, 3% reporting. We'll be getting more of that. So Sheffield with a big lead at this point. Kind of no surprise to anybody. There are several other races on local primary ballots in the race for the Detroit City Council member at large. Now, remember, there are going to be 2 winners in this category. And it looks like, well, it doesn't look like any of the votes have come in from what I could see on this board here. Looks like James Harris has 7,000 or 7% with 5,000 votes. But I'm going to say that is not accurate at this point. So let's move on. New Jersey is one of 2 states holding a gubernatorial race this November. Democrat Mikey Sherrill's campaign focused on issues such as affordability, freezing utility costs, and anti-Trump administration policies. Sherrill is running against Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli. His campaign focused on bringing down taxes, ending cashless bail, as well as affordability, among other issues. And in that race, well, I guess we're not seeing the numbers on that one. Okay? And Virginia is making history with its first ever race between 2 women for governor. Winsome Earl Sears, a staunch conservative who serves as Virginia's lieutenant governor, and Abigail Spanberger, a center-left Democrat. Many are viewing this race as a testing ground for both parties, 1 year ahead of the national midterm elections. And in that race, we do have some numbers, and that one's already been called for Abigail Spanberger. And if you notice in these races, from what I gather, these governor races, you have your kind of Trump Republicans running against Democrats running kind of on anti-Trump campaigns. So far, it looks like the anti-Trump campaigns are doing well, which could be an indicator for next year, but that's just one of the races. But it's believed that both of the Democrats will win in those Democratic ones. And in Virginia, we do have a Democratic winner. Roop?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And let's continue that conversation that Rob started. Very good analysis there, Rob, because we look at what midterms, what will happen with those midterms, and we wonder. And the only thing, to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been. Tonight, we know that Spanberger wins as a Democrat with a convincing 55% of the vote in Virginia. Mayor Ethan Baker, the mayor of Troy, a man who worked for former President Reagan in his post-presidency, a guy who knows politics. We thank you for your time here tonight. Sure. What do we take away from this? 55% of them say Spanberger is my person in Virginia. Does that say that this is a referendum on the MAGA Trump presidency right now?
Yeah, I don't think there's any big surprises in that race in Virginia, if I'm really thinking about it. I think it's consistent with what happened in 2017, when in President Trump's first term, there was the big rebellion against him, essentially, which led to the blue and pink wave of 2018. So as a Republican, I'm a little worried about what the midterms look like in 2026 here in Michigan and throughout the country. But I'm not really surprised by that race in Virginia. I think Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears is a strong MAGA-type conservative candidate who has a lot of appeal to a lot of the people, but she was not probably the right candidate to lead and be governor of the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia.
But when you look at the movement itself and the loyalty towards the MAGA movement, wouldn't she have been able to overcome that had people been serious enough about the MAGA movement and about supporting President Trump in the midterms in the future?
I don't think so. Look at Virginia's numbers in the last presidential race. Virginia's not a MAGA state. President Trump didn't win Virginia. In fact, Republican hasn't run Virginia in a while on the presidential level. So I'm not overly surprised by that. And I think when you have, I guess, Governor-elect Spanberger now as she is a little more center-left. She's more in line probably with what Virginia looks like as a whole. So I don't see it really as a referendum on anything other than it's kind of consistent with what Virginia's been doing the past several cycles. You also have a lot of federal employees out of work right now in those northern suburbs that couldn't have helped help the Republican ticket.
I find it interesting that right now you look at what's happening in New York. All eyes of the world are on New York right now. It looks like Zohran Mamdani, with 36% of the polls reporting right now, show that he has 51% of the vote. Andrew Cuomo with 39%. And I think about those numbers. When you have 36, you're saying in the 36-40% range, you're really looking at a convincing finality of some sort. What are your thoughts on that election? Does that surprise you at all? Cuomo versus Mamdani.
Cuomo is damaged goods. Yeah. I mean, you know, he left in disgrace from from Albany and the governor's office. I mean, I'm not so surprised that it's turning out the way it is. I think, you know, Mamdani is somebody that's really untested. That's a fact. We know that. He's young. He doesn't have any experience in government. It'll be really interesting to see how you then become the mayor of probably the hardest city in America to be a mayor for. But, you know, he had all the energy and excitement, and people and voters generally like the energy and excitement in a campaign. You see it time and time again.
You know, we talk a lot about voter turnout and what that means for any given candidate. When you have someone like Zohran Mamdani, who took over the TikTok airwaves, so to speak, right? And you have Instagram, where it's Mamdani this, Mamdani that. And then you saw the lines today in New York. I found this fascinating. More people lined up by 3 o'clock in the afternoon in New York than has ever lined up since 2001 for an election. That's a big deal.
You know, you didn't see that kind of excitement from Michael Bloomberg or Bill de Blasio, certainly at all. So no, I'm not surprised by that excitement, that level of interest. Obviously, people have politics on the brain right now in this country. They're inundated with it. They're watching it on their phones. They're getting alerts all the time. So it does matter to them. And when you put a lot of attention on a race like the mayor of New York, when you know it's our country's biggest city, that, you know, what happens in New York matters in the rest of the country in a certain respect. It's going to drive turnout, and it's going to drive interest. And if you have somebody who's charismatic and young and reaching out to people and talking about things that don't typically get talked about in campaigns, it's going to draw a new voter base in. And it seems to have worked for Mamdani in New York. And I mean, I'm with 36% in, but it looks that way.
But what's interesting to me is looking at the demographics of the city of New York. It has a largest Jewish population than anywhere outside of Israel, sitting right there. And you have this Muslim socialist, 34-year-old guy running. You would think that all the cards would be stacked against him, but it seems as though the polls show us otherwise.
It definitely seems that way. But, you know, people aren't necessarily just single issue type voters. They don't just look at your faith or who you are, where you were born as the reason why to vote for you or not.
Younger voters don't look at that.
Well,
older voters may.
Older voters may, but even so, you know, I think that's cutting or undercutting a little bit how the older, more seasoned voters look at things. I mean, they are actually more adaptable and really do look at the person and want to vote for who they think is going to do the best job for them.
But if it's someone who's a socialist, what does that say about the Democratic and the Republican Party?
Well, I think on the whole flip side of that, Rup, you really worry about, you know, there's a lot of millionaires and multimillionaires in New York, and people are wondering what's going to happen with. There's a new wealth tax coming to New York City on an income level or something. You're going to see people fleeing back down to Florida. Maybe it's going to get a little crazy down there again. It is going to have an effect on how things go. I mean, but there's millions of
Florida can't afford any more crazy, by the way. It's crazy enough.
They also can't afford any more people. I mean, housing costs down there, I mean, it's gone crazy.
All of us go down there, not me, but those who can afford houses down there. Yeah, this is interesting. So let's come back home for a moment and talk about Dearborn. No big surprise seeing Abdullah Hammoud with this convincing 70+% vote. Talk about the challenges that someone like Mayor Hammoud, who I know you know because you're a mayor of the city of Troy, what are the big challenges that he faces as you look at kind of the landscape right now in Dearborn?
Well, it's a changing landscape always, right? From a diverse standpoint, from a lot of every standpoint that you can think of is changing in the city of Dearborn, like it is in a lot of the cities in Metro Detroit. So I think he faces that initial challenge right off the bat. Obviously, the only chance that potentially he was going to lose this race, I think, was a couple of weeks ago when he made some comments about throwing a parade for when somebody moved out of the city or something.
Right.
That didn't take a hold and didn't really affect his overall turnout, it looks like. But he faces a challenge that people have different expectations. I don't think you can take for granted what it means to be a Muslim voter, what it means to be a Christian voter, a white, you know, a brown skin. It's all very different now. So where you used to be able to put people in boxes a little bit differently, I think that's out the window now. You see what Dearborn voters did against President Biden in the primaries in 2024 as the uncommitted vote. That was key there. And also saw, you know, they voted for Trump in a certain respect. So I think that you can't really expect the old norms to stick anymore. And that's what Mayor Hammoud is going to be facing now. He's really got to find a way to, you know, recognize that everything is moving back and forth throughout the city.
Well, things are moving back and forth when it comes to how to reach voters as well. Right now, it's not lost on me that we're streaming right now on this channel. So people are watching this on their phones, iPads, and their connected TVs. These candidates, did the last presidential election teach candidates a lesson about knowing that you have to go out into podcast world, you have to get into the social media realm and start addressing that audience as much as you do traditional media?
I think so, because you're starting to see candidates now or elected officials, they're constantly doing little 30-second videos, looking into the camera. I actually hate them, but the selfie video into the camera, because they know that's what people are looking at, right? So I think that is something that is affecting our elected leaders and the candidates. And so that is telling me that, times are changing. People are looking for short little tidbits on their phones, for example, or sound bites, and that's what it looks like.
This soundbite will obviously be something that a lot of people who are supporting Sheffield want to hear. Yeah. Mary Sheffield, the Associated Press has called her as the next mayor of the city of Detroit. Again, Mary Sheffield has been called by the Associated Press, looking at all the precincts that have reported so far, that she is the convincing winner for this election. No surprise, this is what people were talking about. Yeah. What is it about Kinlock's campaign that, in your mind, didn't take off?
Well, I think, first of all, you mentioned it earlier, there was a huge discrepancy in funding, and campaign finance matters, definitely. So that was going to make it very difficult for him from the very beginning. But I think, Councilwoman, or Council President, or I guess Mayor-elect Sheffield, I've got to get used to these new terms, she was able to tap into the success that Duggan had in Detroit and what the city had been doing, all that growth that it showed. She was able to take some credit for that. And I think she successfully was able to make a statement and lay out a future for what Detroit could look like in a continuation standpoint. And I think that's what really her success is about.
And I'm going to ask our producer, Kayla, to let us know when you want us to go live to Sheffield's campaign, where Dave Spencer is, and you'll just let me know in my ear. But Ethan, as you talk about this, this is a historic day. Yeah. Mayor-elect Sheffield becomes the first female mayor in the city of Detroit. Young women and everyone out there who's watching this is an inspirational moment for a lot of people, a watershed moment.
Hands down, I think it's fantastic too. And it was shocking to me. My wife and I were talking about it earlier. It was like, there hasn't been a woman mayor of Detroit yet? Yeah. Wow. So it is a big deal. People expect that now. That you see women in leadership all over this country. And so I'm really happy for Mary Sheffield. I think she's going to do a great job. I hope that she does a great job. As the mayor of the city of Troy, it's important that Detroit's doing really well, and I hope that she's able to continue on the success Detroit has had, and use some of that excitement around her new energy, and the fact that she is a woman and that she's young, and help have great success in the city of Detroit.
Well, I'll tell you what, for the number of corporate interests that the city of Detroit has in the big three, you and Troy supporting all these tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers, it's a big deal for the entire region. So Mayor Ethan Baker, we're going to be talking to you throughout the night. Thanks for joining us. Let's get live right now to Fox 2's Dave Spencer. He is at the, now we can say, victory party. And obviously the mood has been jubilant, and it continues to be that. This is a big win for Mayor-elect Sheffield.
It certainly is. It certainly is, Roop. In fact, they have not been informed here. We are hearing it right now. And they're letting the people know exactly what you reported just moments ago, and that what we pushed out on our Fox 2 app is that Mary Sheffield has indeed won the race, creating history. So again, they still have it no here. I'm going to break the news to somebody who's been a young supporter here. Dominique, you're a young voter, and I have some news to report. The AP just called the race for Mary Sheffield, so you're at the victory party. How does that feel?
It feels very surreal, especially being around so many beautiful people. It's just a surreal moment, that's all I can say.
Talk about the atmosphere. It's been a party since they opened the doors. What time did you get here, and what were you expecting when you walked in?
I honestly expected this. I expected everyone to be having a good time, waiting for the results. We already know that Mary Sheffield is going to take this home. I'm excited for her, and she's just such an inspiration to me, and I'm just appreciating everything that she does for us, so I'm excited to see her take home the victory.
You're a young voter. Do you think a lot of your peers voted in this election? Was this important to them?
Yeah, I think they did. The way that Mary did her campaign, it was very, how can I put this? It was very well done. She showed that she was up for the job. She showed that she's qualified, well prepared, and all the above. So I think that not only made me vote, but also made everybody that I know that's a citizen of Detroit vote as well.
Thank you, Dominique. I appreciate you taking that time. Thanks for talking with me. So, there you go. You have a lot of different ages represented here. A lot of people knew that this would be a victory party when they opened the doors at around 7 o'clock. That's when things really got started. And again, they're not going to be disappointed. We're hoping to hear from Mary Sheffield within the next 5 minutes. That's when she is scheduled to do some sort of scrum with the media, answer a few questions with us before then taking the podium over to my right and addressing the hundreds of people that are here in this camp who, again, are still awaiting the news that we have already been reporting, that Mary Sheffield has seemingly won the election. According to the AP, she did win the election and made history tonight. So back to you.
All right, Dave Spencer for us live. She got her first gig at 26 years old. Taryn became a city council member in 2013, then to become the president, and now going to be the next mayor of the city of Detroit.
Making history then and continues to make history. So we'll wait for her to take the podium, and we'll be sure to get that live for you. But right now we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is our wall-to-wall coverage of election night here on Fox Local. I'm Taryn Asher.
And I'm Rup Raj. We're bringing you live up-to-the-minute results. And the latest results, of course, Mary Sheffield has won the mayoral election, according to the Associated Press. Our team is spread across Metro Detroit, keeping an eye on all the big races, including the race for Detroit's next mayor.
Yes, and right now, though, I believe we're going to check in with Dave Spencer at this point, or is it?
No, Sheffield Sound. We're going to go to
yes.
Mary Sheffield talking about what she had planned for the city of Detroit when she was running. Take a listen. What's something that Mayor Duggan did that you plan to expressly follow? And perhaps there's more than one thing. And what's one thing that you would do differently than Mayor Mike Duggan?
Well, I think he did a great job of driving economic growth in Detroit, really partnering with the private sector to feel confident in investing in our city. We have had tons of manufacturing industries come to Detroit, creating thousands of jobs for Detroiters, so we want to keep that going. I also think that he did a great job working with the council, because we supported this work in ensuring that basic city services services were functioning, whether we're talking about our garbage being picked up or grass being cut or snow being removed. These are basic city services that every resident deserves, and we want to keep that going. But without a doubt, my focus that would not necessarily differ, but we will build upon, is neighborhoods. There's no doubt that we have to ensure that every single neighborhood has opportunity and is feeling the growth of our city.
You feel like they've been neglected?
I feel that we have more work to do. Detroit is a big city. There has been some investments in some areas of Detroit, but more needs to fill it. And that is my goal, is to build up our communities in our neighborhood so that every neighborhood feels the opportunity, that we're building more housing, more paths to home ownership, and that we're raising the incomes of the residents that live here. We still have an extremely high poverty rate in Detroit, and I have always been on the front lines with our men and women in labor, ensuring that we're pushing for good livable wage jobs in Detroit, but we want to ensure that we are pushing for increased upward mobility for the residents that live here in Detroit as well.
All right, again, she has been projected by the AP to be Detroit's next mayor, making history as the first black female as the mayor of Detroit. So exciting times for that, and we have crews monitoring both campaigns right now.
Yeah, we'll get to Camille Amiri. She's with the Solomon Kinlock campaign in just a second, but let's go right to the victory party. We can officially say it's a victory party live at the Mary Sheffield camp, and for that we turn to our own Dave Spencer. Different angle you got there. You got a lot more people crowding in right now, right?
There certainly is. So, yeah, we positioned ourselves so we could get a good shot of the podium. So I apologize that I'm having to look up to you guys and you're looking down at me. But that's only for strategic reasons, because there is a chance that she'll be taking the podium soon, and we want to make sure that we're in position. Again, this crowd has been waiting all night for some sort of definitive answer. I know that the AP has called it. That is yet to reach the ears of the people who are in attendance here. We're talking about hundreds of supporters that have been here since about 7 o'clock. I'm at the MGM Grand Casino Ballroom, located in the heart of downtown Detroit. These are supporters who have been there from the very beginning. There's been a DJ who's been keeping the crowd entertained and energetic the entire time. There's been a dance floor that's been going on as well. Again, we're still waiting for word from that DJ to say that Sheffield is definitively the winner, and you bet that this place is going to erupt, because it's been a party all night. So that will just put things over the top. Here's a little plan of how we've been told things are going to go. That Mary Sheffield will make herself available to us, the media, sometime before she takes the podium. I'm not quite positive that that's going to be the case, however, as that all the media is still lined up here in Media Row on the podium, and then we're told she's going to take the stage behind me, the podium, and address all of these supporters and give a victory speech after a race that was called roughly an hour and a half after the polls closed. So a lot still to happen here tonight. Nothing has happened yet. We haven't seen from Mary Sheffield quite yet. There's been just basically music, DJs, that's it, not even speakers. We have seen a number of familiar faces that are not even necessarily from Detroit. We saw Mark Hackle, the Macomb County executive. We saw Dave Coulter, the Oakland County executive. We saw Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State. She's also here, along with the Chief of Police, Todd Bettison, all in attendance in this room. People are starting now making their way to the media room. So I think I'm going to break away, send it back to you, see what's going on there. We might be hearing from her, and we'll bring that to you momentarily if that's the case. But I'll send it back to you guys for now.
All right, we'll let that news filter down to the crowd there so they can find out and celebrate accordingly. We'll check back in with you in a little bit. Dave Spencer reporting live for us. Thanks. Right now, though, we're going to head over to Camille Amiri. And now that that news has been announced, how's the Kinlock campaign responding?
Yeah, well, still a very energetic crowd here. No announcement has been made here at this party as far as the race being called. We do know the Associated Press has called it that Mary Sheffield is the new mayor of Detroit. Still kind of a dance party here, but I've been told that Solomon Kinlock is on his way here. I've been told that by his campaign manager, and that he will take the stage, presumably to make his concession speech as soon as he gets here. So we are standing by for that, but still a very, I'm going to step out of the way actually so you can see what's going on. Very energetic crowd. This crowd fought very hard for this, and they've always been boots on the ground since the very beginning. Yes, he's been been the underdog, but with a 40,000 base of Church, Triumph Church, where he's the senior pastor, they really, really believe that he could be the next mayor. Unfortunately, it did not work out the way that they had planned. I don't know if they know yet, though, because as you can see, everybody is really excited and happy, and I don't know if they're just happy that he made it this far and that he ran such a clean, good, gracious race. But that is what's going on here. So we will see what happens when he takes the stage. So right now, that's kind of a waiting game. But like I said, I am not sure that the people here know that the race has been called. So that's what's going on here. I can step back into the shot, and of course, we can bring you his concession speech as soon as we know that he's taking the stage. But for now, we're reporting live. I'll send it back to you.
I was wondering if you'd heard Camille when he may take the stage, or if he's there even in the building. I mean, sometimes, I hate to say, but when these candidates don't win, sometimes they don't take the stage.
Well, we had heard that he's on his way here. I'm not sure if he was having a private, viewing party where he was watching the returns. But we have been told by his campaign manager that he's on his way here, and that as soon as, which is supposed to be soon, and when he gets here, he will give his concession speech. So I think it's just a matter of time where he was, how, as far as getting here and coming in and addressing the crowd. But definitely, you got to hand it to these people, this crowd. They have been energetic and backing their candidate 100,000,000%.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you. I'm sure it's hard to hear me. It's probably hard to hear yourself. So we're going to let you go. We'll check back with you a little bit. But yeah, it seems like they're celebrating regardless. Thanks, Camille.
Well, there is other election news happening outside of Detroit. As you know, we've been talking about stuff from all over the country and here in Metro Detroit. And here at home, a lot of voters are paying very close attention to what's happening in Dearborn on several key issues. Fox News' Lauren Edwards is there and joins us live. No surprise that the current incumbent mayor is doing so well, because the polls had indicated ahead of the polls closing today that he would be doing well. But overwhelming victory there.
Absolutely, he is doing well. The last time I checked, Roop, he was 77%, and Najee was just 24% or 21%. That was just a few minutes ago. But we're at a banquet hall here, and let me tell you, it is packed. It's a banquet hall in Dearborn. We've been here for maybe over an hour, and throughout the last hour, more and more people have come, because we're hearing within minutes he is going to be here greeting his supporters, greeting the fans here, and this is going to turn from a watch party into a victory party. Now, we've been all over Dearborn earlier, just from City Hall to several other polling locations, folks going in and out, voting. A lot of people talking about that today is so important, that it's about getting their voices heard, and they know that Dearborn has been in the national spotlight, especially over the weekend after the FBI raids and that terrorist plot that has been foiled, the FBI says, and they say that the city is just so much more than that. So yeah, there's just so much happening out here. Lots of people gathered, lots of people just waiting for him to come through the door. Again, it's just so packed out here, and we've already spoken to just a few people also. Mamdani as well, already congratulating him, even though it has not ended. That New York race hasn't ended, but again, he's a fellow Arab American, and all eyes are on him as well. So a lot here. So much happening. We're going to continue to stick around here because we want to see him too. As soon as he comes through the door, we want to see him too, because I want to pull him over for an interview and just ask him assortment of questions. We're going to stay here and just get all the sights and the sounds for you guys of what's going on in Dearborn. Reporting live in Dearborn, Lauren Edwards, Fox 2 News.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot about that opponent of Mayor Hammoud, Nagi Almudegi, a 51-year-old who's actually a big Trump supporter. And we know there was, after the Gaza, issues that had happened in the last few years, we saw there was a growing kind of conservative edge to some pieces in parts of Dearborn. Obviously not enough to push them over the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. He does have a more of a conservative perspective. I know when I was doing all the research and talking to people, they were saying his big thing right now is crime and bringing crime down. So hopefully, hopefully that can happen should he be called mayor. But for right now, the way that these polls are looking, it looks like it's going to go in a different direction.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way when you have 70+% with the number of precincts already reporting. It's pretty clear right now where this is headed. Of course, you'll be there watching it every step of the way. And when you get Mayor Hammoud, to talk, please let us know. We'll be checking in with you then. Taryn, over to you.
All right. All right, thank you, Rupert. We're just learning the AP also projecting Zohran Mamdani projected to win the race of New York mayor, and that's not unexpected. We've been seeing those numbers come in, but it really certainly does point to what voters are speaking, and we've heard time and time again the candidates now meeting voters where they are. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's interesting, first, that what we're seeing sort of a repeat of what we've seen in some of the special elections that have happened over the last year, and that is the Democrats are doing very well, sort of nationally. That's not a huge surprise. The last time President Trump was in the White House, Republicans also trailed when he was not on the ballot. So, this pattern that has developed is that when Trump is running, Republicans do well. When Trump is not on the ballot personally, Republicans struggle. And I think we're seeing a repeat of that tonight. I think it sets up a really interesting conversation of what's going to happen in 2026.
Well, I also was going to ask you, though, what do you also attribute it to, though? Is it with the economy? I mean, promises that the president has made that maybe have not come to fruition and right now seem very far away.
Right. I think that there's a couple of just realities we have to acknowledge, that Donald Trump is historically unpopular as a president, and Trump's policies are also uniformly unpopular, including his signature policies, whether it's on the economy or on immigration. He's underwater across the board with all of his priorities. And so
is that because there's not an immediate response? Because some people believe it's just a matter of time before things flip.
No, I think what they're seeing is a big disconnect between what was promised and what's been delivered. And even with folks who wanted to see a tougher line on immigration, they've been really turned off by the aggressive nature of the immigration enforcement policies. So I think you put all of that together, and it puts Republicans in a challenging position moving forward.
Well, and you've heard this before, and people have said it. It's not necessarily what President Donald Trump does, it's how he goes about doing it.
Right.
And that's sometimes the tariffs being so extreme, or how what's going on with the shutdown, and really kind of putting a wrench in that as well. And what we're seeing, even the economy in general, just how everything's very extreme, and I think people are having a hard time with that.
I would agree. I think it's interesting to see what Democrats are doing well and what they represent in terms of being different from the Democratic establishment, especially in leadership in Congress, right? So Mamdani, I think, is really interesting because he comes from that sort of left fringe of the party, which is sort of pretty far out of step with the Democratic leadership, but not out of step with an increasing number of base Democratic voters.
Well, some people think it's pretty scary. He's a self-proclaimed socialist, and then they relate that to communism.
Except if you look at what he's actually proposing, dealing with the incredible cost of housing in New York City.
That's always been an issue.
Right, dealing with the cost of education, suggesting or proposing sort of universal preschool education and kindergarten in New York City. Talking about increasing access to food security. Now, I'm not sure I would get on board with city-run grocery stores.
Right.
But the ideas are ideas that directly speak to the struggles that voters are experiencing. And I think we're seeing those kinds of policy proposals really beginning to resonate with Democratic and independent voters.
Right. They're pricing people out of there. And then we saw what happened in Virginia.
Right.
And then certainly they went Democrat as well. And we see a lot of federal workers.
Right.
And they have been impacted by this shutdown. And the big, beautiful bill.
But New Jersey as well, right? So it appears as though right now it looks like the Democrat is going to win the governor's seat in New Jersey. And that is another state that has been beginning to move sort of out of the blue ranks into more purple. There was some thought that the Republican would have a chance there to grab the governor's seat. That does not appear to be coming to fruition, at least so far. That race hasn't been called yet. But again, I think what this indicates to me, at least, is that the Trump effect only goes so far. And it really doesn't pay off for the Republicans if Trump himself is not the center of attention as being on the ticket.
And that seems the longer this goes on, including the government shutdown, the more people are going to lose everything, really.
Well, that's right.
They depend on.
Right. Everyday Americans are beginning to feel the effects of this shutdown. And I think the president is wrong when he says that the worst effects of this are all Democratic constituents.
I want to put you on pause just for a moment real quick, Peter Trumbull. I want, right now we know that the Reverend Kinlock is taken to the podium in response to Mary Sheffield winning mayor.
Sovereign, when he said it of his son, I say it of mine. Caden, in whom I'm well pleased. I love you, boy. I want to thank the members of Triumph Church for more than 27 years ago. You gave a 24-year-old boy a chance to do ministry and initiative as I saw it, and I thank you for giving me a platform to give other young men and women the same redemption that you were able to give me. Thank you for giving me a chance. And then to the city of Detroit, I love you, and ain't nothing you can do about it. I got in this race, and when I got in this race, I didn't get in for the privileged and the powerful. I didn't get in because I needed a job. I didn't get in to satisfy greed, but I got in to meet the needs of the people. I got in because I wanted to make sure that at this crossroad, we built a city that was inclusive of us all. I stand here tonight with no regrets. No regrets. Despite the scrutiny and the criticism, I understand my calling. I was not called to be comfortable. I was called to sometimes go through a crisis so that other people can be celebrated. I'm willing to be inconvenienced so that other people can be inspired. I'm willing to suffer and to sacrifice so somebody else can be saved. That's my calling, and I will continue to do that as long as I got breath in my body. Despite all of the politics and the politics, if this campaign don't do nothing else, I want it to accomplish at least one thing, to make sure that you understand that you cannot afford at this crossroad to sit on the sideline. This city's in trouble, and we need you to stand up and step up more now than you ever before. I got in this race because they weren't talking about affordable housing. I got in this race because they wasn't talking, they were celebrating crime. They were saying that crime is going down, but the people in this city still don't feel safe. I got in this race because the majority of the people in this city still wrestle with keeping a roof over their head. And our seniors still need a peace of mind and live with integrity and dignity. And that's a fight that does not end. The election may be over, but the movement is still going on. I want you to know that I'm still going to be fighting for quality education for every child. This has to be a city where not only we survive, but we thrive, to put our children on a pathway to career and college. We still have to continue to work for our seniors. We still have to build affordable housing. And we still got to make sure, and I'm going to still yell it from the rooftop, that you cannot make all of the investments downtown. It has to reach the whole town of Detroit.
You heard the Reverend Solomon Kinlock right there discussing some of the concerns of Detroiters, but he did not convince them that he was the man to fix those problems. Your take on Mary Sheffield, really, he got 21%, we're hearing. She got 78%.
Right. I mean, it's not a huge surprise, right? Given the margin in the primary, given the advantages of fundraising and name recognition and endorsements and all of that. I do think Kinlock's message is a really good one. And I think he is putting his finger on some real needs in the city. And I think Sheffield is going to have to address that if she's going to be successful, if she's going to be seen as a mayor for the entire city, not just a mayor for the downtown developers, but a mayor for the neighborhoods. I think she's going to have to deliver on some of what Solomon Kinlock's talking about.
Well, and also she's going to be facing some challenges when it comes to the finances of the city. They don't have the Biden bucks coming in anymore. Pensions, we're talking about bonds. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be coming up that she's going to have to pull from the tax base that might not be there.
Right. I mean, I think that what we may end up seeing is that some of the days of sort of sweetheart tax breaks for downtown development might have to be set aside, right? I think there's going to have to be real reinvestment in the neighborhoods where people are struggling and where they are feeling disenfranchised and disconnected from the city and its leadership. So if she can do that, I think she'll be an incredibly successful mayor.
I mean, let's be honest, Detroit's a very large city, 136 square miles. I mean,
it is.
They have, in this past administration with Mayor Mike Duggan, have done a very good job of getting into the neighborhoods. They just haven't gotten to all of them, and there's a lot more work to be done. However, there's a lot of challenges ahead. How do we make sure that we don't go backwards, in your opinion, Peter, of bankruptcy is a scary word. We don't want to go there.
Right. I think Detroit went through a very challenging historical period, not helped by a culture of corruption at City Hall.
Yeah.
And assuming we've left all that behind, I think that the future's pretty bright. But everyone needs to be pulling in the same direction. This disconnect that has existed between the city and the suburbs, between the city of Detroit and Oakland County, for example, and Macomb County, I think if we can mend those bridges and we can have a more unified sort of regional approach to governance, I think that would go a long way to seeing success for everybody, not just for the residents of the city, but for folks who live out here in Southfield or in Dearborn or wherever.
And perception is reality. Let's be honest. They keep saying these numbers are going down with the crime, but yet the average person or people watching the news don't feel like that. And so is it maybe a situation where we might see a different leadership in the police department now that we have a new mayor?
It's possible. I mean, I can't say that I know enough about, how the senior leadership.
But it happens.
But it can. And I'm assuming that, once Sheffield is in place, that she's going to start making some moves to try to put into positions in the city folks who share her vision. Assuming we know what that is, right? There's the things you talk about when you're campaigning, and then there's the realities when you're sitting in the chief executive's chair. And so we'll see what that trajectory is going to look like once she takes office.
Yeah, and I apologize. That was my alarm to get on the set for the 10 p.m. news. So that's what's just going off right there. Normally when we're day to day. But Peter, what about these other races, though, when you're talking about, you have Hamtramck, that's playing out, and of course Dearborn, and they have had their own challenges in recent months. What do you think about what's playing out there?
I think that there are a couple of things I think that are encouraging, right? We are seeing participation. We are seeing a desire, in some cases, for continuity in leadership. I think in general, off-year elections are a funny thing because they don't draw the same sort of voter base. Right. There's not the same sense of investment. There wasn't even any elections in my community. No. There was no ballot at all. And so what I think we need to see moving forward is whatever momentum, whatever enthusiasm was able to be drummed up in this off-year election, I think it's going to be incumbent now on the parties to try to harness that and take that forward into 2026.
So yeah, I was going to ask that next. So gathering what we have so far from from this election today, given what's going on in Virginia, New Jersey, New York, even here in Detroit, what are your thoughts? What is that saying about the midterms?
There's a couple of things that I want to pay attention to. One of those is going to be the outcome of all of these sort of mid-cycle congressional redistricting efforts. So we've already seen that in Texas. The proposition is on the ballot in California that would allow the state to redraw their congressional districts to try to cancel out what Texas did. There are other efforts taking place in other states. I think Kansas abandoned its effort today because they didn't have the votes. It was raised in Indiana, again, redistricting mid-cycle. Don't know if that's going to come into play. So that's going to be something to watch, right? What we're seeing is parties in control of state governments are trying to use that position to stack the deck in favor of their particular party. So the Republicans started it. Democrats are now following suit. We may see this now with in Virginia, now that we have a Democratic governor who's going to come into power there. So that's going to be a big story to watch moving forward.
And it's interesting, too, because a lot of power has been kicked down to the states because of what's going on at the federal level.
Well, right, but that's also how our system is designed, right? You know, we are a federal government of devolved powers, right? We give authority to the states to do things like administer social welfare programs, to do things like run their own elections and all of that sort of stuff, right? So states can do that because it's the states who control their electoral process. And I think that that's the way it should be.
All right, now, I believe Mary Sheffield has just come out. Is that true? We're going to see right now. We're going to go head over to Dave Spencer. Right there, Mary Sheffield taking the podium. Let's take a listen.
That experienced leadership is important, that there has been progress in our city, but we want to see more. And so I'm very eager to get to work to deliver for the residents of our great city. I'm just honored, I'm humble, and quite honestly, I'm taking it all in.
Yeah. Can you feel the historic moment in all this?
I can. I think what this means to our young people, our young girls, who now have the opportunity to see a woman serving in the mayor's office. So it is a historic day. And again, I am taking it all in and trying to bask in the moment. But I am just so honored and thankful to the residents of Detroit who spoke loud and clear today, loud and clear. And so I'm eager to get to work because there's a lot of work to do.
Council President Sheffield, or should I say Mayor Sheffield?
Mayor-elect.
Yes, this is such a huge deal in the city of Detroit. You are the first female mayor in the city's history. How does that all feel?
Can we keep the door closed, please? Till it's time. Thank you. As I mentioned, I feel a weight of responsibility to ensure that I am setting a tone for generations who are watching us. But more importantly, there was a mandate tonight, right? Detroit spoke loud and clear. And so now I feel a huge responsibility to make sure that I deliver on ensuring that Detroit continues to rise high. So very honored. I know that there is so many women who paved the way for me to be here today and for us to be here today. And so I'm grateful and humbled to be here.
Have you heard yet from your opponent? Did he reach out? Did you guys talk at all this evening?
As of now, no, not yet.
Do you hope to?
Of course. I think at the end of the day, it's about moving Detroit forward. And anyone who steps up to run for office during this time, it's not easy. And so I'm willing to work with whomever has a vision of moving Detroit forward.
What was your impression of voter turnout today?
So I think overall, we always want to see a higher voter turnout in Detroit. And one of the things I'm going to do in the mayor's office is ensure that we are consistently pushing voter engagement and civic engagement year-round, not just during the election time. I've always had the ear of our young people, and we want to kind of broaden some of our initiatives around civic engagement from a year-round perspective. So we're glad people got out, but we always want to see a higher increase in voter participation.
And I know you have a long list of priorities. What is at the top of your list for the first 90 days?
Well, I'll tell you this. We are going to be hopefully launching very soon some information around our transition process, which will be community driven. We are going to have people from various sectors of our city sitting on that transition with various committees, from gun violence to housing to infrastructure to transit. And that committee will drive what the first 100 days of my administration will look like. Now, we have already outlined a plan on our website around what we want to do, but we want to also allow the space for this transition period to lift up more issues about how that administration can move forward within that first 100 days.
How do you feel like your victory fits into kind of the national conversation around what new Democratic leadership should look like, especially in big cities like Detroit and New York, where we pick young candidates?
I believe that in Detroit, you had a leader who brought experience, who has a record of delivering for this city, who's been consistent in their leadership, and that is what Detroiters want. And so I'm very honored that they saw me for me, and that they're trusting me to move our city forward.
A lot of emotions to work through. Have you thought about like the broader national kind of implications, the attention that's being brought to Detroit as a result of your victory?
Yeah, we want national attention. Detroit is a world-class city, and a part of what I'll do as mayor is ensure that we continue to get the recognition and attention that we deserve, but also the funding as well. But no, I do think it's a great, it's good to have national attention on Detroit, and my leadership, we want to continue to do that as well. Positive attention as well.
This race was close.
59,952 votes. Mary Sheffield, 17,000 Solomon Kinlock. Mary Sheffield, the mayor-elect of the city of Detroit.
Yes, we will be right back with more election coverage right after this.
Working for you. Fox 2 News at 10 starts now.
A busy and historic night. Thanks for joining us with our continuing coverage of the 2025 Michigan elections.
Working for you. Fox 2 News at 10 starts now.
A busy and historic night. Thanks for joining us with our continuing coverage of the 2025 Michigan elections. It's 10 o'clock. Good evening. I'm Rupraj.
And I'm Taryn Asher. The ballots or the polls have been closed for about 2 hours now. Results we know are coming in and it's continuing to pour in. As we know, we do have some final numbers and we have some team coverage for you tonight with reporters live across Metro Detroit. We'll check in with our crews in just a minute.
But first, let's get to the results. Rob Olchek here in studio with us tonight. And Rob, a lot of interesting numbers coming out here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Arguably the biggest race we're following across the state right now, the battle to become Detroit's first new mayor in more than a decade. Tonight, the Associated Press has called the race, projecting Mary Sheffield will become the city's next mayor. Sheffield will be the first woman ever to hold the role. We have reporters in the field with both campaigns tonight. We'll check in with them in a few minutes, and it looks like She won in a landslide, 78-22. The other big Detroit race we're following is for the city council members at large seats. The two top candidates will win those seats. Here's where that race stands right now. It looks like Mary Waters and Coleman Young II are both have a pretty good lead and look like they could be projected winners. That's 41% with the votes in. So they're still going. And here's another interesting one. In Detroit, voters took up a proposal to change the way city council works. Proposal 1 would carve up the city into wards for individual city council members. And it looks like that has not passed. 91% of the vote in. That looks like they will not be changing the way the city council votes there in Dearborn. Looks like that did not pass. Turning to one of the most watched races in the country, the New York mayoral election tonight, the Associated Press has projected Zoran Mondani will defeat Andrew Cuomo to become the city's first Muslim mayor. Looks like he won pretty heartily, 49-41%, with Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, picking up 7.9%. There are a ton of other races to watch all over the state and some major races we're following across the country, too. Stay with Fox 2 as we bring you the latest on air and on Fox Local. Roop?
All right, thanks, Rob. Let's take a closer look at that big win you're talking about, the Detroit mayoral race. It's been, as you know, a heated competition ever since the primaries, but Mary Sheffield has crossed the finish line with a decidedly big win. Fox 2's Dave Spencer is live from the Mary Sheffield watch party at the MGM Grand in downtown Detroit. And I know you're going to have trouble hearing me, but what was the speech like? What was her main message when she came out to announce her victory?
Every single resident. Please let me share this one quick story.
Yes.
Early on in her first year on council, she had to make one of the biggest...
All right, we're here at the MGM Grand where we just heard from the mayor-elect, Mary Sheffield. She just gave us a press briefing moments ago saying that she's still coming to terms with the history that was made in that room when she got the call, when the votes were tabulated, and she realized that she was going to become the first woman ever to run the city of Detroit. She also said that she is yet to hear from Solomon Kinlock, the person that she was running against. Hopes to hear from him sometime soon, sometime this evening, and says that there's going to be a path together as they both work towards the same goal. That is obviously making Detroit the best place possible. She said she was still kind of overwhelmed with their path that got her to this place. When asked about what she would do when she takes office initially, she said she's working still on getting a transition team. So there's still a lot of puzzle places that need to fall into place. She's very happy with how fast this path came to her. You know, going from the youngest person ever to be elected to the city council to what we're seeing now, the fact that she has made history again, becoming the first woman to become mayor of Detroit. And in just a few moments, she's going to address the hundreds of people here in this room at the MGM Grand Ballroom, where she's holding her victory party that began roughly at around 8 o'clock this evening. As soon as that happens, we'll bring that to you. But I'm going to send it back to you. Reporting live, Dave Spencer, Fox 2 News.
All right, Dave, we know it's very loud there. We will try to talk to you in a little bit, but Sheffield's opponent, Reverend Solomon Kinlock, gathered his supporters at the Garden Theater in Midtown. And that's where we find Fox 2's... What people have been saying, he took the stage a short time ago. Obviously, the feelings must be a little defeated themselves.
Yeah, but really a very gracious speech, very no regrets. He's actually coming down the line right now to talk to all of the TV stations individually, and we've got 2 more stations before us just because of the line that we're in. We just happen to be the first ones here, so just wanted to make that clear. But really, I want you to listen to this speech because it was very gracious. He says he has absolutely no regrets. He says he got into this race for all the right reasons, but go ahead and take a listen.
The election may be over, but the movement is still going on. I want you to know that I'm still going to be fighting for quality education for every child. This has to be a city where not only we survive, but we thrive, to put our children on a pathway to career and college. We still have to continue to work for our seniors. We still have to build affordable housing. And we still got to make sure, and I'm going to still yell it from the rooftop, that you cannot make all of the investments downtown. It has to reach the whole town of Detroit.
So a very energetic crowd. People continue to actually stay here. There's still some people here. But what I want to tell you about during this concession speech, everybody was holding their phones up like they were at a concert, videotaping with their phones his concession speech. It was a refreshing moment in politics to see such a clean campaign run on both sides. That's something that we always see, lately in our country. But we're going to have more continuing coverage. But you heard him say he has no regrets. He said he's going to continue to fight for the people of Detroit. He specifically talked about affordable housing and why that is so important, something that also the voters have been talking about. We spoke with the voters, and that was one of her main concerns, not just focusing on the city of Detroit downtown, but also focusing on the neighborhoods. So that is one of the main reasons why she voted for him. So we're going to send it back to you, but we're going to continue to have coverage throughout this hour.
It'll be interesting, Camille, to see if he plans to work with Mary Sheffield as mayor and trying to accomplish many of the things that he had set out to do if he was elected.
Yeah, and he didn't say anything about that as far as the future goes and as far as whether he'll be working with the new administration. But he said he promises to help continue to fight for the people of Detroit. And he said to the people all who were here, he said, this is not the time to sit down and sit on the sidelines. He said to everybody, he said, even though I didn't win, we have to continue to fight for Detroit. And he told everybody to continue to stay involved in politics. Everybody cheering him on. He's got a lot of supporters. But like you said, we'll have to see what happens. Will he work with the new administration? What he will do going forward. But again, a very gracious concession speech. And we'll see what happens. I'll send it back to you.
All right, Camille and Mary for us live tonight. Thank you, Camille. Our election coverage does continue in Dearborn, where all eyes are on the mayoral seat there, which is up for grabs. Now, here are the latest results. Not a big surprise here, but you can see the competitor there, Nagy, ended up with 37%, 77%, if we put that back up on the screen, but we can't see it right now, 77% of those who voted for Abdullah Hammoud. As we say, Lauren Edwards joins us now, and there's the number, 73% Abdullah Hammoud, and Nagy Almadeghi, 25%. Now, this is an interesting race because Abdullah Hammoud, of course, is the current front runner and the current mayor. But then you have Nagy Almadeghi, who came in kind of as a big Trump supporter and a conservative. What does this all mean? Fox News' Lauren Edwards joins us live with what voters are saying tonight. Lauren, now we'll get to you. How are you?
Yes, I am here still at the watch party for Mayor Hammoud here in Dearborn at a banquet, and I can tell you within the last 2 hours it has gotten packed. So many people up on the stage waiting for him to come in because I'm hearing he is nearby. But next to me, I want to bring in Councilman Kamal, who has been here. You just walked in, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Now, what has the energy been like tonight with voting?
It's been wonderful. A lot of excited residents in the city of Dearborn. We're seeing the results, and I think these results speak to the work that we've done the last 4 years, working with the mayor and the administration, and we're excited to keep that work going.
You know, one of the things, too, Dearborn has been in the spotlight a lot over the weekend, with the FBI raids or anything like that. Is there anything you want to speak to regarding that?
I think we have a beautiful community here, and I encourage anybody to come here, visit Dearborn, try our food, talk to the people, and you'll love it for yourself as well.
And while we were here just 5 minutes ago, they announced that Zohran Mamdani, I have to ask about him, Zohran Mamdani won his race in New York City. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the people of New York spoke, and we're excited to see what direction New York is going to head to.
Now, last question, though, tonight, though, clearly this is going to turn from a watch party to a victory party, just judging the way the polls are going to go. What do you hope for in this next term, this next would-be term for Mayor Hammoud?
Well, I'm looking forward to working with Mayor Abdullah Hammoud. He's done a great job the last 4 years. We've seen it on the ground. He worked really well with the council, myself, and the rest of the council colleagues. We had a great team, and we're looking forward to keep that team going forward. A lot of results for the residents. We know what the priorities are for the residents, and we're executing on those priorities.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I know that Mary Sheffield, the new Detroit mayor-elect, she's about to take the stage. So we're going to wrap things here. Reporting live in Dearborn, Lauren Edwards, Fox 2 News.
All right, Lauren, let's get live to Mary Sheffield once again as she's trying to take to the stage again. And there's a little bit of music in the interval there. But as goes, look, she's hugging all of her supporters in the front row there. You know what's interesting? She actually spoke as kind of the beginning act of the victory party. Then there were some other speakers. We heard Dave Spencer live there. And now Mary Sheffield apparently either just took to the stage or is getting ready to go on again. I believe she just came back out again as she's hugging her supporters.
Well, yeah, she was in a bit of a press room, and it seemed like when she was answering questions, and now she's hitting the stage with her supporters and her father there, Reverend Horace Sheffield. And, you know, she's getting ready to speak, but it's an exciting, historic moment as Detroit mayor, first female, Mary Sheffield.
Mary, 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 Mary.
Good evening, Detroit. Wow. Detroit, we did it. We did it. Detroit, you showed up, you showed out, you stood strong and raised your voices towards a future that we all can believe in. And when some said that it couldn't be done, when some said that it was not the time, Detroit, you said, together we can. Together we will. And tonight, together we did. This needs to be moved over some. Tonight, this victory belongs to all of us. Detroit, you have spoken loud and clear from every corner of this city. That's right, thank you. And I am reminded tonight that all things are possible to the one who believes. As I stand here as your mayor-elect, I want to first extend my deepest gratitude to the residents of this great city. You all have welcomed me into your homes, your neighborhoods. Where else? That's right, everywhere, all throughout this city. And I would never forget the memories and the times that we've shared throughout this campaign. Thank you for your support, your prayers, your trust, and your confidence, and for believing in a vision that we share for this great city. To every Detroiter that is watching tonight, whether you voted for me or not, I am here to listen to you, to fight for you, and to serve you. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. A Detroit that works for everyone. For everyone. This journey was not walked alone. There are so many incredible people who have shaped this moment and walked alongside me. First, to my family, to my father, who has always instilled strength and faith in me, to my 88-year-old grandmother, she came out of retirement just to come help me on the campaign. So we thank her for her wisdom and her grace that she has given this campaign. And for my beautiful mother, who is no longer with us, but watches over me and guides my steps daily. And to all of my family that is here today, thank you for grounding me, shaping me, and loving me into this very moment. Right, that's right. To the best campaign team on the planet. The best and the brightest. You all worked with heart, with grit, and brilliance. And I am deeply grateful for each and every one of you all. To my campaign manager, Chris Scott. Danielle Elamine. Taylor Harrell. Rayshawn Sanders. David Bowser. And we had the best field game, I'm just saying. Led by John Clark and Chantel Watkins. And I have to thank Molly Goldberg, who helped lead the finance for this campaign.
All right, there you have it. Mary Sheffield on her victory speech saying that she will be a mayor for everyone, whether you voted for her or not. She also talked earlier about being an inspiration to young women, understanding that her role as the new female mayor of the city of Detroit, the first ever, is certainly a watershed moment for the entire city.
Absolutely, and it was certainly her experience, her credibility, and her transparency that people trusted and be able to move forward. So setting an example, and we'll see how it goes in the future. We know that all eyes will be watching, and she has some very big shoes to follow as well.
All eyes are watching her, and in the small city that has made a lot of noise in recent months of Hamtramck, the city is voting for several new city leadership positions, including the city's next mayor there.
Now let's head to Fox 2's Dave Kinchin, who's been tracking the winners all night. And Dave, what has been the response or reaction to the numbers coming in there?
Well, we spoke with the two major candidates for mayor. It is a hotly contested race, we're told, here between Adam Al-Harbi and Muhith Mahmoud, who's on city council and running for mayor, trying to replace Mayor Amir Ghalib, who was tapped to be President Trump's ambassador to Kuwait. We spoke with both now. Real quickly, Adam Al-Harbi says that he won the walk-in vote, and they're counting the absentee right now. That's from his word. We're still waiting on official word there, but let's listen to both campaigns right now, both candidates.
Everything went very well. It's a tiring day. It's a long day. We've been out there since yesterday. We had a long day. You have to set up everything. Then today we woke up early. Community response very well. What I've been hearing, the absentee ballot, almost 3,000 to 3,500 absentee ballots. So it's going to take some time, but everybody excited. We are very hopeful because communities speak up, and they speak up very loud. Everybody kind of showed up to the vote more than expected.
It's been going great. We've knocked on doors, we've talked to everyone, and today we had an amazing team that spread out throughout all the precincts, and we feel pretty good about the election so far.
What's been the difference in this campaign? How would you say you've set yourself apart from your opponents here?
I'm someone that grew up here. I've been here since I was 8 years old. I went to all Hamtramck public schools. I've lived here. Now my children are growing up here versus my opponent, who's known to live in a different city.
He's talking about Councilman Mahmoud, who has denied those allegations that he does not live in Hamtramck. Reporting live in Hamtramck, Dave Kinchin, Fox 2 News.
All right, Dave, thanks for that. Our election coverage continues as voters weigh in on critical races that could serve as a measuring stick for the national political climate. Up next, we're talking with Fox's Connor Hansen on the latest election developments from New York. Well, our nonstop coverage of the 2025 elections continues now as we focus on one of the most high-profile races in the country.
In fact, tonight, New Yorkers are picking their new mayor, and they've already picked him. The stakes were very high. Fox's Connor Hansen is live with details on the key race in America's largest city. And Connor, arguably the whole world is talking about Zohran Mamdani and his big win tonight.
Well, that's right, Roop, and that race has now been officially called by a significant margin to self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani has taken that win. He will be the next mayor of the nation's biggest city, New York, where I'm sitting right now. And he won by a margin pretty similar to what polls showed us ever since that primary, where he pulled that upset against former Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had to switch over to an independent to run against Mamdani again in this race, but he could not pull it off this time. Now, Mamdani has listed all sorts of programs and ideas he would like to put into play. He's talked about having free buses here in the city, freezing the prices of rent, even city-run grocery stores. It's questionable how many of those will be realistic or not, but he's going to put it to the test here. All the candidates in this race agreed that costs are just too high, from everything from your cup of coffee at the store to your rent at your apartment or home here in New York City. So this is a huge win and a huge election day here in New York. This was the highest turnout for a mayoral election in New York City in several decades. So people meant it this time. They wanted to come out and make their voices heard, and now we have our answer.
Well, you know, a lot of the residents, the voters of New York, they have issues. They can barely afford to live there, and many have said that, yes, the government-run grocery stores are certainly extreme, but he did seem to address their concerns and met them there when it comes to education and housing and just being able to live in New York. Do you think that that was it, or are you hearing more that this might be a result of where the president is currently with his economic situation and what he's been able to produce for people across the country?
Well, it'll be fascinating to look through all of the exit polls on this. I can tell you, even just as a resident of New York City, how fed up people are with the affordability issue. But we're seeing that in some of these other races around the country, too. People are tired of the prices of just about anything. But I will say also that Zohran Mamdani did run against President Trump, and President Trump did sort of endorse reluctantly Andrew Cuomo, saying you should vote for him because he's calling Mamdani a communist, basically. So we are also seeing that dynamic in some of these cities, candidates that say they're going to stand up or fight against President Trump. So in cities where the president is less popular, certainly giving them some advantage in that case. But this will have so many implications, not just here in New York City, but across the nation, as these races are watched so closely ahead of the midterms, when cities go with, you know, a more far-left socialist, democratic socialist candidate rather than a self-proclaimed moderate or independent candidate like Cuomo. So the repercussions of this will be so fascinating to see if this happens again in some of these House races next year. You know, Mamdani had endorsements from establishment candidates as well as, you know, the other well-known Democratic socialists like Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Right.
So interesting to see if those types will take more powerful roles coming up.
Yes, certainly some Democrats gaining some footing there, and whatever may be the motivation, that eventually playing out. Thanks so much, Connor Hansen, reporting live for us. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
A big story here at home. The city of Detroit choosing a new leader, a historic moment. Next, we're breaking down how these races will impact Detroiters and people in Michigan within the next few years. You're watching our continuing coverage of our election 2025.
And tonight we're continuing our Fox 2 election night coverage.
Rob Wolchek is the numbers guy. He's recapping all the latest results that we've been coming in all night long. And Rob, what do you got for us?
Well, we're following races here at home and across the country. Of course, we've been talking about the big results all night, including an historic outcome in the race for Detroit's mayor. Tonight, the Associated Press has called the race, projecting Mary Sheffield will become the city's next mayor. Sheffield will be the first woman to ever hold the role. We have reporters in the field with both campaigns tonight. We'll check in with them in a few minutes. Detroit is also electing a new city council. Specifically, we're watching the results of the city council at large seat. Now, there are two winners in this, the top two vote getters. Looks like right now Mary Waters and Coleman A. Young II have some pretty big leads in that race. Two big governor races we're watching tonight. First, in New Jersey, Congresswoman Mickey Sherrill defeated her opponent, who is backed by President Trump. She won by 57% to 42%, so a big victory for the Democrats, and another victory for the Democrats. In Virginia, Abigail Spanberger has won her election, becoming the state's first ever woman governor. In that race there, Spanberger beat her opponent 55 to 44%. Both of these governors' races considered bellwether tests for the 2026 election, both going to the Democrats. No results yet, but this is definitely a race to watch. Later tonight, we'll learn more about California's the future of California's election system, depending on if Californians pass Proposition 50, which would approve a new congressional district map for the state. California's polls close in about a half an hour. That, of course, is the redistricting map by Gavin Newsom. The governor there is pushing that. We'll keep following all these races on the air and online at fox2detroit.com and the Fox local app. Roop?
With all our numbers. Thank you, Rob, so much. We'll be talking to you again. Here to help us unpack tonight's local races and our national races and how this affects all of us, Oakland University professor Peter Trombor. It's good to see you, Professor. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's begin nationally and come locally real quickly here, because I think it's interesting. You heard Rob Wolchek talk about this being a bellwether, seeing these other gubernatorial races. Yeah. Virginia and New Jersey, both overwhelmingly going to the Democrats. Is that a sign of things to come for the midterms, or do those races stand independent of that?
No, I think it's a helpful indicator of where the mood of the electorate is right now. And I think that mood is pretty solidly opposed to the current administration and a lot of its policies and the implementation of those policies. Virginia is really interesting, right? Because the three top statewide races all went to Democrats. There was a shift towards the Democrats, I think, in virtually every county across the state of Virginia, and that's noteworthy. And Virginia tends to be, as was just pointed out, a bellwether. It tends to be a leading indicator of what we might see in the next go.
We'll go to New York for a moment here and take you on a trip, but first we'll come back to Detroit here in this conversation. No big surprises here with Mary Sheffield winning. An overwhelming victory, though. You heard Pastor Kinlock talk a little bit about the fight and how it must continue. How important is it for Sheffield in this fight to move forward, to have Kinlock's support kind of moving forward and trudging forward?
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be critical. I think that, the issues that Kinlock was raising are very real, and he speaks to the sense of disenfranchisement and disconnection that many in the neighborhoods feel towards the city and its leadership. And so I think Sheffield is going to have to be responsive to those concerns. Certainly, her predecessor, Mike Duggan, did a lot to bring the city forward, but there is a very real sense that many of those benefits didn't find their way down to where many of the city's neediest citizens live. And I think that Sheffield is going to have to bring those efforts much more consciously out to where people are and begin to address some of the things that Kinlock is talking about.
When you talk a little bit about who went out and voted, you're talking about numbers that amount to something like 50, 60,000 for one candidate, 10, 15, 20,000 for another. So essentially fewer than 100,000 people or so voted in this Detroit election. That's roughly 1 in 5 people who voted. Do people feel disenfranchised and that they're not part of this greater system?
I think there's no other conclusion to draw, right? If people felt invested in the outcome, if people believed that City Hall listened to their concerns and were responsive to those concerns, then they would be much more actively involved. And I think the reality is that for the better part of, what, 20-some years now, we have seen this gap emerging, that lower and lower turnout in municipal elections. You know, the city turns out in national and statewide elections.
Yeah,
They don't turn out, though, for the people who most directly, you know, affect their lives on a daily basis.
Let's talk about the New York race with the 40 seconds we have left, the Mamdani race. This obviously a convincing win for Zohran Mamdani. Your thoughts on that? What does this mean?
I think it's really interesting. Certainly this shows that you can turn out people in an off-year election, right? The biggest turnout in New York City in, since the late 1960s, and I think that's pretty impressive. It's also impressive to me, the audience that he reached and the methods that he used to reach it, right? He very skillfully leveraged all kinds of new media, social media, in a very effective way. And his message about tackling some of the problems of affordability, of living in, working in a city like New York, are, I think, attractive to a lot of people.
Peter Trombor, Oakland University, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us. You got to start a TikTok page soon.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do, Peter. I'm telling you, you're doing just
fine. I'll be an influencer.
You could be.
Yeah.
Taryn, over to you.
Thanks. Well, Detroit has a new mayor. Mayoral-elect Mary Sheffield will be the city's new leader, the first female mayor after a hard-fought campaign. Let's go now to her watch party at the MGM Grand in Detroit, where we find our own Dave Spencer. And she was on the stage last time we talked to you, and she wrapped up at this point.
Yeah, she is. She spoke for about 15 minutes, Taryn. It was a very impassioned speech right from the get-go. She talked about how there have been 75 mayors here in the city, the long history of the city of Detroit, and now there's 76, that being the first female mayor the city has ever seen. And she kind of took a moment and realized the power of those words, and it kind of, you could see her eyes start to well up. You could hear the crowd kind of get up and cheer at that very moment, and then she kind of directed her message to some of the girls and the women that are here in the audience, the hundreds of people that are here, and said, don't let anyone tell you can't do what you want to do. So when she talked about how this started as a dream for her in 3rd grade, and it was really energized by her 3rd grade teacher, and the impact that has carried on throughout her life, going on to become the youngest person to ever be the city council president of the city of Detroit, which was elected in 2022, and now this history-making moment, becoming the mayor. And after thanking a number of people, she talked about how there's still a lot of work that she plans to do. She plans to get to those neighborhoods, the ones that she visited from the east side to the west side along the Campine Trail, and reach those people. That has been her mission ever since then. She says that the current administration has done wonders in making sure that Detroit has become a vibrant hub for businesses and a place that people want to live. But she also talked about how the neighborhoods are where this needs to be the focus now. I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks, Dave. Well, there is so much to unpack when it comes to election night. Next, we are focusing on ways political officials are trying to engage voters to get out to the polls. That's when we come back. All right, one of the key focuses when it comes to elections is finding ways to get voters to get out to the polls and get their voices heard. And with me tonight, though, is Troy Mayor Ethan Baker and former Democratic Chair Mark Brewer. Certainly, that is a big indicator of how people do at the polls. This is not typically an election where we see a lot of voter turnout. But yet we still had some extreme cases when it came to results. Thoughts on and reaction of what happened today, where we saw Democrats really kind of take the lead, and especially in the national races.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great night for Democrats. Even in a state like Georgia, Democrats won 2 statewide races tonight that they haven't won in decades. Every county in Virginia moved toward the Democrats. So just if you look and examine the results, it really is extraordinary. Democrats are going to pick up, I think, what maybe close to a supermajority in the Virginia House as well. So, again, a great night for Democrats. I might add, from a Michigan perspective, it's a bad night to be Mike Duggan. I think he picked the wrong time to abandon the Democratic Party.
Yeah, maybe some people didn't see this coming because Trump did soar on a lot of popularity, but now this may be speaking to people just not being happy with his policies or the economic progress at this point.
I think that's some of it. I think we consistently see that if Trump's not on the ballot, or if you're not named Trump, you don't do as well as a Republican or as a MAGA Republican right now. And that's, I think, what we're seeing today, especially the races in Virginia, New Jersey, New York City, even here in Michigan. It's just not, it doesn't translate unless you are Trump. And I'm not surprised by these results. I think also here in Michigan, especially, we had beautiful weather today. That gets some people out. I think turnout is a little bit out in the suburbs. Up in Troy, for sure, we had more turnout than we expected. So I'm not surprised by that. I just think that Trump is a motivator of people to get out and vote, usually against him if he's not on the ballot himself.
Yes, but certainly there's extreme things happening in our country right now when the government shutdown taking its toll on Americans. Certainly we've seen the policies, if it's immigration, that swayed people a certain way. They're not happy with it. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are going on, and tariffs. I mean, the economy, they don't feel like, a lot of residents, a lot of voters don't feel like he's delivered. Certainly, it doesn't look good in the future. What's it going to take then to turn that around, or is this going to be what we should expect in the next election?
Well, again, I think, Trump's got a lot of policies in play that are hurting him. Yeah. People didn't have any reason to come out and support his candidates tonight. I mean, he endorsed Cuomo in New York. That obviously didn't help.
I mean, now I spoke to Mamdani. I mean, look at that, an extreme situation where he's a self-proclaimed socialist.
Right. I mean, again, whether it's tariffs, whether it's health care cuts, health care premiums going up dramatically, people have not seen anything that he promised to do, and he's suffering from that backlash. My fear is that he gets even more vindictive and more crazy based on tonight's results.
Well, what about here locally, though? Go ahead. You want to respond? Ethan? Go ahead.
Maybe on the flip side, things change a little bit, and there is a better, people do work together. I mean, I'm hoping there's always that chance. This could be a wake-up for everybody at the Republican level, and including in the White House, to say, hey, we need to get the government reopened. Let's find a way to do it where we can maybe both save a little face and not have it be pointing the fingers at each other. I'm optimistic that could maybe be the way around.
I mean, right now they seem so far apart.
Well, I think it was talked about earlier. People like Senator Peters, who doesn't have any skin in this game anymore. He's not on the ballot next year. There's talk that he might be one of the Democrats that will switch over. The reality is we've got to get the government back open. We can't. The SNAP benefits. People are suffering. Everything about it, and the healthcare costs are an issue, and they're going to go up. But this can be addressed in a separate way. But SNAP benefits, it's hurting people now.
All right. And locally, though, we saw our first female mayor in the city of Detroit, and we hope that she can continue the momentum moving forward. One key thing that you think that she needs to work on to be able to do that?
I think her plan to extend the prosperity we've seen downtown into the neighborhoods is really, really important.
And despite some economic challenges.
I'm with Mark there. I mean, I think that's the thing. If you can take what's happened downtown and build on that success and actually make the people who live in Detroit outside of that immediate area feel it, that would be a win for all of us in the state.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we appreciate you both being here all night long and sharing all your views on a big election night in 2025. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, let's check in now, though, with Dave Kinchin. He is live in Hamtramck. And, Dave, you're talking to the candidates there, we know earlier, and certainly a lot at stake.
Yeah, that's right. It's a small city with crazy big city politics, and there's still counting ballots right now. The clerk's office tells me where things stand coming up.
All right, busy night. We've been talking about election outcomes all night long, but there's one race we don't know much about tonight.
And that's the city of Hamtramck's race, electing a mayor and a city council. But right now, we haven't published or learned of any concrete voting numbers. And let's get right to Fox News' Dave Kitchen, live in Hamtramck. And Dave, you've been following this drama in Hamtramck for a while at City Hall. And tonight, though, we're just waiting for those numbers to see which way the city will go.
Yeah, I just got off the phone with the clerk's office. They say they're still counting absentee ballots now, so they're not expecting to have numbers for a while. That's still ongoing. There are two main candidates and one write-in candidate trying to replace the outgoing mayor, Amir Ghalib. Now, we're talking about Adam El-Harbi, and we're talking about Muhinth Mahmoud as well. And we talked with both of them earlier tonight. They were both counting on some turnout and really counting on the absentee ballots. El-Harbi tells us that he believes he has won the walk-up vote, but they're still waiting. Of course, everyone's waiting on the absentee count. Listen to both of those candidates now.
I think people are fed up with voter fraud. They're fed up with people running here who don't live here, and I think it's a change. That's our campaign. Our campaign is a campaign of a change of a Hamtramck, and we call our campaign Hamtramck Forward. We're going to move Hamtramck forward from current voter fraud and city drama to a Hamtramck that's focused on the concerns of the residents and move on our Hamtramck to a better stage.
Well, in politics, we always divide people, but my goal is bring everybody together, regardless, what color or ethnicity or anything you can name it. My first priority is to bring this city together and bring a peaceful city. It's a small city. We don't need to have division. We need to have, combined effort to build this city. And I know everybody loves this city, and opinions always could be different, but we can turn the opinions to be an argument. We need to have a 1 point, then we all need to step up one step forward to find a one ground to work together to bring a city really presented to the Michigan.
There was a third write-in candidate, Lynn Blasey, and we reached out to see if she'd talk tonight. She said, unfortunately, no, I'm already home in bed for the night because she'll be at a conference on sustainability tomorrow. So, yeah, she posted on Facebook that she was actually going to bed before the ballot counting really, I think, started. So, yeah, I guess it is really between the two candidates you heard right there. Reporting live in Hamtramck, Dave Kitchen, Fox 2 News.
All right, Dave, thank you. Detroit electing a new mayor on this historic day. The question lingers of how the mayor is going to lead the city forward. We'll unpack the day one mayoral priorities for Mayor-elect Mary Sheffield. You're watching Fox 2 News at 10.